the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
America,
to the
and to
republic,
the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God,
indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Pierce,
I am present. Sorry, I muted myself.
trustee Masek,
Here.
trustee Yost,
Here.
trustee Dominiac,
Here,
trustee Polis,
He's here.
trustee Johnson,
Here.
Mayor Hanson.
Here.
You guys hear me or no?
No. Good evening, and thank you for taking the time to attend our meeting via Zoom tonight. Our first meeting is open to the public hearing on our annual tax levy. Anyone wishing to speak in this hearing will be sworn in, afforded the opportunity to do so. Callers have been asked when initially calling into the meeting if they would like to speak regarding the tax levy. We will call on each of those who have indicated they would like to speak. Once finished, they will be muted. Anyone logged in may raise their hand if they would like to speak regarding the tax levy. We will call on each of those people, and once they are finished, they will be muted. Second meeting will be of the Village Board of Trustees special meeting, followed by the Committee of the Whole meeting. As noted on the posted meeting agenda, comments regarding those agenda items have been sent to the village clerk in advance of the meeting. Any comments received prior to 4 p.m. today were forwarded to the village board. Anyone wishing to make comments to the board at the conclusion of the meeting may email the village clerk, Lori Romine, at lromine@aniac.il.gov, and those will be forwarded as well. So let's get started. Anybody want to be sworn in? Tax levy? Stand and raise your right hand.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you give in this hearing will be factual to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
You want me to read the-
Thank you. I'll have Joy, our clerk, read the notice.
Notice of proposed property tax increase for the Village of Antioch. A public hearing to approve the proposed property tax levy increase for the Village of Antioch for 2020 will be held on November 25th, 2020 at 7 p.m. virtually via Zoom. Any person desiring to appear at the public hearing and present testimony to the taxing district may submit comments via email to Village Clerk Lori Romine at lromine@antioch.il.gov. The corporate and special purpose property taxes extended for 2019 were $3,562,689.82. The proposed corporate and special purpose property taxes to be levied for 2020 are $4,158,572.52. This represents a The property taxes extended for debt service for 2019 were $0. The estimated property taxes to be levied for debt service for 2020 are $0. This represents a 0% increase over the previous year. The total property taxes extended in 2019 were $3,562,689.82. The estimated total property taxes to be levied for 2020 are $4,158,572.52. This represents a 16.73% increase over the previous year.
Thank you. Joy?
Good evening, Mayor Hanson and Board of Trustees. The hearing tonight pertains to the tax levy ordinance. This is the village's legal request to receive property taxes imposed upon properties within the village's corporate boundaries. The levy before you is requesting 4.1 million of property tax revenue. This is a 16% increase over last year's levy. However, it is important for me to explain that this is not a 16% increase in the village's portion of the tax bills for village residents. To briefly explain, the formula to calculate the amount we are requesting tonight requires using the equalized assessed value of all the properties within the village. Since that equalized assessed value, or EAV, is unknown at this time, we have to make an estimate. We do this by using last year's actual value that was provided by Lake County. To that, we add any new construction that occurred within the village boundaries. And then we also assume that there will be an increase in values of all the other properties within the village. And we call that the appreciation factor. So we make two assumptions here, the EAV and the appreciation factor. And as a result of making those assumptions and using estimates, the levy is much higher than we actually expect it to be. But for residents, you don't have to be concerned because there are legal safeguards to limit the percentage of increases for non-home rule municipalities like Antioch. That limit, or tax cap, is known as the Property Tax Extension Limitation Law. That law says that the village and other non-home rule municipalities can only increase the levy by a maximum of 5% or the percentage increase in the consumer price index during the last 12 months of the calendar year preceding the levy. So whichever is the lesser of those two numbers is the maximum amount the village can increase the levy. That this year is about 2.3%. So the question is, and the question I sometimes get is, if we know that the lesser of the two is 2.3%, then why are we asking for a 16% increase? And the answer is really very simple. In April of 2021, next April, the county will tell us the maximum amount of taxes that we can levy. So since tonight, we do not know what that maximum is, and we have to pass this levy before the end of next month, we ask for more. We ask for more than what we think the county's maximum will be. But why, you ask? To put it simply, let's say that next April, the county says the minimum amount of tax, the maximum amount of taxes we can receive is $100. If our levy tonight is $90, next year we will only receive $90. But if our levy is more than $100, then we receive $100, or only the maximum of the county says that we can receive. So, Your Honor, later tonight, this ordinance will come before you for approval, and I hope that I have been able to explain briefly how this works, and that we can allay any fears of a 16% increase in taxes.
Thank you, Joy. Would anybody else wanting to speak on behalf of the levy?
Can you ask the public to raise their hand?
Okay, and if they are, I would need the public to raise their hand and get sworn in by waving. Anybody? Okay, we have nobody that will speak. I'll go to the board if they have any questions at this point. Trustee Pierce, any comments?
So just to be clear, we're voting on the amount that the county can levy in their taxes on our blue cards next year that we have to pay for this year, correct? This has nothing to do with the current budget or the current appropriations. It's for next year's tax levy.
This is for next year's levy.
Okay. And
Year's taxes collected, rather.
we are asking for more because we want to make sure that we cover the spread that the county is going to give.
Correct.
Okay. And you said if we ask for less, then we only get less, right?
Correct.
And they'll spread it somewhere else.
Correct.
Okay. What if we continue to ask for less, our amount we get every year will go down.
That is true.
Okay, so we're not using, okay, I got it. That's my question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Here,
Trustee Masek?
I know this is a procedural. I just wish there'd be a better way to communicate this prior to this meeting because we've got a lot of chatter of residents thinking this was going to be a tax increase on their homes. It was, when we, when we see that, people go into a panic mode and they're talking, boy, I'm going to sell my house. It brings negativity to Antioch. We got to do a better job in our PR. I know we do this every year. It's a procedural vote, but boy, did this jump around and it, this jumped around on Facebook to make all of us look like we're sneaking something through.
Okay, we'll definitely have a new,
Well, I think something should be put on the website after the fact to explain exactly what this is. So the person that did that, I don't want to mention who started this. So basically, they can be more informed because that was a hot potato that started going around. It was started by a person, then it goes around, and then it becomes political. I think we gotta put an apology post that we shouldn't be putting fear in people.
I think every community has the same issue, Ed, and we'll take that under consideration. Obviously, we're in a different type of world today as far as the media outlets. And years ago, we had, more media as far as newspapers and stuff. And today with the virtual and the Facebooks and the
Yeah,
Twitters.
but Mayor, all due respect, that we don't have a newspaper coming to our meetings, so we have to be our own newspaper and react to the negative publicity we get with our own. When we hear something, we have to react to calm our residents down with some transparency of what's going on.
I totally agree with you, Ed. I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I'm just saying we used to, that was the only way we could communicate in the past was newspapers. We
Right,
didn't have.
we don't have that, so I mean,
Right.
we
I
gotta
agree
get
with
something on our webpage or Facebook of exactly what this is, because there's still negativity out there. This thing got a lot of hits.
Okay. Well said. And
All right.
I believe I thought we did do, I thought Joy worked on something and tried to get it out there. Joy?
Yes, I did prepare something for Facebook. I'm not sure where it went. But I'll be sure to do this. If my presentation tonight simply explain the process to your satisfaction, I can certainly
No, Joy, you did a great job explaining the process. It's just people are quick to jump the gun. And because of, the library during a COVID crisis, the library passes, it's just everybody's getting taxed to death, and they're thinking, oh, we're taking more money out of their pockets right now. So I think that was the disconnect.
Okay. Well spoken. Anything else, Trustee Masek?
Nope.
Okay.
No, Your Honor, sorry.
Trustee Yost?
Your Honor, I have no questions. I do want to thank Joy for all the work that she put into this and helping to explain a complex process and make it a little bit easier for us everybody to follow. So that's all I have. Thank you, Joy.
Thank you, Trustee Yost. Trustee Dominiac?
No questions. Joy, thank you for your clarity.
Trustee Polis?
me? Can you hear me?
Barely.
Very barely.
No questions, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, trustee Pauls. Trustee Johnson?
I don't have any questions, but I do agree with what trustee Mason said. I know there's a lot of confusion amongst the residents and so forth, but I think Joyce did a great job of explaining, so I think that was very helpful.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if there's no further questions, Joy, if you have nothing else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting
Close the public hearing.
or close the public hearing.
I make a motion to close the public hearing at this time.
I second.
Okay, that's made by trustee Pierce, and that's seconded by trustee Johnson. Roll call, please.
Pierce,
Aye.
Mason,
Yes.
Yost,
Yes.
Dominiac,
Yes.
Polis,
Yes.
Johnson,
Aye.
6 voting yes, no nos, motion's carried. I'll ask for a motion to adjourn the public hearing.
So moved.
That was by trustee Paulus,
Second.
second by trustee Dominiac. All in favor by indicating aye.
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 Okay, meeting closed. Okay, we'll immediately stand for the pledge of the special meeting and stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance
Pledge
to
allegiance
flag
to the flag
the United States
of
of
the United
America,
States of America
to the
and
republic
to the republic for which it stands,
under God,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
in harmony. Okay, roll call, please.
trustee Pierce,
Present.
trustee Mason,
Here.
trustee Yost,
Here.
trustee Dominiac,
Here.
trustee Polis,
Here.
trustee Johnson,
Here.
Mayor Hanson.
Yes, here. Okay, we need a motion to approve the November 2nd, 2020 special meetings as presented. I'll need a motion in a second to get it on the floor.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion was made by trustee
Mason.
Masek, and then trustee Johnson seconded that motion. Any questions, trustee Pierce?
No questions, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Masek,
No questions, Your Honor.
trustee Yost,
No questions, Your Honor.
trustee Dominiac,
None, Your Honor.
and trustee Polis,
No questions.
and trustee Johnson.
No questions, Your Honor.
And we'll have roll call, please.
Pierce,
Aye.
Mason,
Yes.
Yost,
Yes.
Dominiac,
Yes.
Polis,
Yes.
Johnson,
Aye.
That's 6 voting yes. There are no votes. This motion's carried. We have 6 items on our regular business agenda tonight. First item is the consideration of a resolution authorizing a special event liquor license for the Village of Antioch Winter Wine Walk to be held on January 23rd, 2021, waiving all fees. That would be resolution number 20-55. And I'll need a motion to get it on the floor in a second.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Okay, it was made by trustee Masek, second by trustee Dominiac. Any questions, trustee Pierce?
No questions, Your Honor.
Trustee Masek,
No questions, Your Honor.
trustee Yost,
No questions, Your Honor.
trustee Dominiac,
None, Your Honor.
and trustee Paulus,
No questions, Your Honor.
and trustee Johnson.
No questions, Your Honor.
Okay, the clerk will take roll, please.
Pierce,
Aye.
Mason,
Yes.
Yost,
Yes.
Dominiac,
Yes.
Polis,
Yes.
Johnson,
Aye.
6 are voting yes, none are voting no. This particular motion is carried. Consideration of a resolution accepting the GASB 67 and 68 actuarial evaluation for fiscal year 2021 or year ended April 30th, 2020, and the tax levy actuarial evaluation for fiscal year April 30th, 2021 for the Police Pension Fund Resolution 20-53. I'll need a motion in a second to get it on the floor, please.
I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion made by trustee Pierce, and it sounds like it was seconded by trustee Yost.
Correct.
Okay, any questions, trustee Pierce?
No questions, Your Honor.
Trustee Masek?
Just my questions from last time. How much is this underfunded?
If I may, Mayor Hanson, this was the item that was tabled at the last meeting because trustee Masek and trustee Pierce had questions. So I've asked the actuary, Robert Reese, to present to you this resolution tonight, or rather the actuarial valuation. Bob is from Lauterbach and Amen. They prepared this valuation and police pension levy on behalf of the police pension board.
Okay.
So I'd like to introduce Bob now.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to share my screen as I have a PowerPoint slide to go through, and I'll have all the highlights of the actuarial evaluations so we can talk about the numbers, and I'll be able to answer all the questions that the trustees have. And during the meeting, if you have any questions that come up, please feel free to interrupt me and voice in. So I'm going to share my screen here real quick. Can everybody see the document right now?
Yes.
Yes.
The first page of the document, we're going to talk about the recommended contribution and where the assets and the unfunded liability stands for the fund. Right now, last year, your recommended contribution was just over 2 million, excuse me. And this year it increased to 2.15 million, about $130,000 increase, which is about a 6.5% increase. Normally, we would expect that to go up by 3.25% each year. So I'll go through some of the other financial and demographic items that caused a little bit higher increase than what we would normally expect. If you recall, the recommended contribution is really comprised of two different components. One being the normal cost. So the normal cost is the accrual of benefits by all the active officers. So they pay their employee portion for those benefits. In addition, the village has a contribution amount to go through that. So of that 2.15 million, approximately 463,000 is due to the normal cost or the accrual of benefits. The remaining amount, or about 1.7 million, is due to the payment of your unfunded liability. If you look about in the middle of the page there, we have a line item for unfunded accrued actuarial liability of 23.47 million. Right now, we're amortizing that 23.47 million over a 20-year period, trying to target 100% funding. And that's how we get the additional contribution amount of 1.7 million to round out the total recommendation. Further going through the page, just an idea of kind of what happened during the year. Your market value of assets increased by about 450,000 from the prior year. If this valuation was completed as of May 1st. So if you recall where everything was at during the pandemic, and the markets were probably at one of their lowest points around April 30th. So the market value right here is probably significantly understated from where you're sitting at today. The return from the year 5/1/19 through 4/30/20 was a negative 1.75%. And we have an expectation of 6.75% each year. So in essence, that was an 8.5% actuarial loss that was experienced due to investments. What we do have in place to safeguard against those investment gains and losses is the item we call the actuarial value of assets. So that's the next line item there. And you'll see that amounts about $900,000 higher than your market value, which means there's some gains and losses that were incurred over the past years. We smooth those gains and losses over a 5-year period. And as of 4/30/20, you have about $900,000 of deferred losses. So they'll be coming into the valuation in future years, but we don't have to immediately recognize them today. Looking below, you'll see your unfunded liability did increase by approximately 1.2 million. However, your funded percentage also increased, which is a good thing. You want to see that going up. Right now, you're just under 33%. So even though that the unfunded liability increased, the contribution you made last year was still large enough to allow the plan to grow at a faster rate than what the liabilities are growing at. Any questions on that so far?
Trustee Masek, you were on the floor. Do you have any questions so far?
No questions so far.
Anybody else? Trustee Yost?
Just out of curiosity, what's the average rate of return over, say, the last 5 years?
I don't have, I can pull that up in just a moment, but it's probably somewhere in the 5% range would be my guess. Let me see if I can find that real quick for you.
I think that's fine.
It's under 6.75. 2018 was typically a bad year. 19 was a good year. And then again, here coming in for 2020 being another bad year. It's been pretty volatile over the last 3 or 4 years.
And that was kind of my point, right? We have roughly a 5% rate of return, but we're consistent. And I understand why we're using 6.75. I think it's mandated by the state, but at the same time, we're kind of fooling ourselves, in terms of the performance of the funds and how we're actually, coming up with the numbers a little bit, right?
Yeah, if I just pulled up your actuarial report, we actually show a 5-year history in there, and you have an arithmetic return of 2.77% over the last 5 years.
So the real rate of return versus the assumptions that we make there's a pretty big divide there.
Correct.
And that's not an Antioch thing. That we see this is the problem with the Illinois pension system.
Absolutely, that's statewide. We see that everywhere. You're in a situation where this is the premise of what the whole consolidation was built around, was trying to get better asset returns for all these local pension funds. And right now your local pension boards are kind of hamstrung with the way you can invest with only up to 65% in equity, but also restrictions on how you can do that. Versus, they're comparing in the consolidation towards the IMRF model, which they have much broader investment opportunities and a higher limit to go into equities and so forth. So,
right. And that 65% equity allocation is actually for us fairly recent, because you had to be at $10 million in assets in order to actually allocate that. So our rate of return was much lower because our asset allocation in equities versus fixed accounts was significantly different.
Yeah, looking at your valuation, you probably just crossed the $10 million barrier.
About a year ago.
Right. So for 2019, so prior to that, you were only allowed to go up to 45% equity. So obviously at that point in time, higher returns are probably very, very hard to come by.
Anything else, Trustee?
No,
Okay.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your insight. Trustee Dominiac?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Thank you. Trustee Pauls?
I'm sorry, no questions.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Johnson?
No questions, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. That's all we had on that. Anything else, Trustee Masek?
No.
Your Honor, Bob actually has a few more slides.
Okay, that's fine.
to you.
Go ahead.
I'll proceed forward. The next
Thank you.
page, I told you how the contribution went up 130,000, or about 3.5% higher than what we would expect. We would normally expect about a $1.5 million increase in your liability. And then again, that's due to the accrual of benefits under your normal cost. That's interest on your existing liability, and then taking out the benefits that were paid during the year. In addition, we would expect your contribution to go up about 3.25%, or $66,000, due to the amortization method, because we amortize on a level percent of pay basis, which is, there's 2 different ways you can amortize the unfunded liability: a level percent of pay or a level dollar. If you consider a level dollar, that would be like a house mortgage or a car loan or something like that, where you're making one equal payment every year until the obligation's paid off. A level percent of pay is an increasing payment schedule based on your salary wage increase assumption. which we have presently set at 3.25%. So that's how we have an increasing payment schedule going forward. Other demographic and financial items that cause some gains and losses to the fund. Salary increases greater than expected. Really, you're pretty much right on what we would expect long-term with salaries of 3.75% long-term. This is outside of the initial years where you have a step program in place and a little bit higher salaries are earned. Demographic changes, the only thing you really had this year was one member terminated with a vested benefit, did not take a refund of that benefit. So you'll see a gain there with the liability decreasing, and also a pretty substantial decrease to your contribution because that member is no longer earning any additional benefits. So his normal cost, the accrual of benefits, has gone away. So the plan experiences a gain in that regard. The next two items, assumption changes and plan changes. I'm going to go through plan changes first. Plan changes is in relation to the consolidation bill, and other than just looking to consolidate the funds for investment purposes. As part of that, they did do some enhancements to the members that are what we call tier 2 or hired after January 1, 2011. So currently, or actually formerly, tier 2 members, in determining their amount of benefits, you would use a final 8 of 10 years average of their salary. The consolidation bill lessened that to a high 4-year average. So in general, you would expect the salaries to be used for tier 2 members in determining their benefits is now going to be higher going forward. In addition, tier 2 members have a cap on the amount of pay they can use in the determination of benefits. That's currently around $120,000. And that cap was increasing at formerly the lesser of 1/2, 3%, or the CPI rate. And the consolidation bill took away that 1/2 provision. So now it's going to increase at a full 3% or the full CPI, whichever is less. So both of those items, you're going to see the salaries for tier 2 members potentially be higher when they draw their benefits. So we have an increase in liability and an increase in the contribution due to a higher funding target they're going to have to get to. So the normal cost for those liabilities is now going up as well. The assumption changes we show here, a $624,000 increase in liability with a corresponding $35,000 increase in contribution, is related to every 4 or 5 years, we as the actuaries at Lauterbach and Eamon, we have actuarial standards of practice, which means we should be looking at all the assumptions for the funds and do experience studies to try to come up with the appropriate decrement rates, such as termination rates, disability incidence rates, mortality tables, salary scales, those sorts of things. So in and of itself, your fund is not large enough to do an experience study on its own to come up with individual rates for your fund. So what we do is we consolidate all the data we have for approximately 360 police and fire funds that we work with within the state of Illinois. So about half of the funds we're the actuary for. And we consolidate all that data and perform an experience study to come up with individual police and fire set of assumptions for all those decrement items. The big change this year was the mortality table. So formerly the mortality table was what we call the RP 2014 table. It was at the time when we went to that in 2016, it was the most recent best available table that was out there. However, since then, some governments, public funds, and so forth had some questions regarding that table because it was that study was based off of private sector data, analyzing private sector pension funds, supplementing with a little bit of Social Security data to come up with those mortality tables. And many governments and public funds said, well, that's really not indicative of our population. So the Society of Actuaries recently in late 2018 completed a new table surveying 79 large public sector pension funds across the country, similar to CalPERS or Texas Teachers, those sorts of funds, gaining 40 million life years of experience to come up with the new mortality tables. So this year, under this new, what we call Pub 2010 tables, we have specific tables that a subset for public safety, which would include police and fire correctional officers. So that's the table we chose to go with and use going forward. We also include what we call generational mortality improvement, which means every year the Society of Actuaries kind of earns an additional year of data. and they supplement the base table and provide an additional year data to say, are people living longer? And if so, we want to capture that with mortality improvement. So that's the reason for the probably the biggest reason for your gain and obligation here of 624,000 is due to the mortality tables. And it's, it's coming in at, approximately 1.5% of your overall contribution increase for those assumption changes. Any questions on those items?
Any questions, trustee Pierce?
So
Trustee Masek?
Questions?
Trustee Yost?
No questions, Your Honor.
Trustee Dominiac?
None, Your Honor.
Trustee Polis?
No questions, Your Honor.
And Trustee Johnson?
No questions, Your Honor.
Okay. Okay, you can go forward.
I'm going to jump forward a couple pages here. This one to talk about really the cash flow for the year. So this is the reconciliation and market value of assets from May 1st of 2019 through April 30th of 20. The employer contributions of the village put in 1.8 million, which is in line with the contribution that was the recommended contribution from our actuarial report from 2017. The member contributions of 250,000, and you'll see your return on investments of negative 160,000. This is where I came up with that negative 1.75% return. You're paying out benefits about $1.4 million a year, plus some expenses. So you had a net increase in 450,000. The one risk management thing we like to talk about with regards to these cash flows is really these benefit payments. So if we took this 1.4 million and divided it by your market value of assets, we would get a ratio, which is right around 13 to 14%. So that means you're paying out around 13.5% of your money every year in benefit payments. That's a pretty significant amount we want to keep our eye on, because when you look at your contributions coming in, they're almost equal to the benefit payments going out. So when we're talking about your fund being in the 33% funded, if you're paying out so much in benefit payments out of the year, you really have to have a good investment year to make that funded percentage go up at a faster rate and try to capitalize on those benefit payments. Ideally, we would like to see the ratio of these benefit payments to your market value to be right around 6.75%. So in theory, you could say investment returns are paying our benefits. That means all these contributions that are going in are from the village and from the officers are going to where it needs to go to fund for the current and future liabilities. So it's just a risk management thing we like to talk about, because if we go forward another page, we say, what are your benefit payments going to do in the next 5 and 10 years? 5 years, they're going to increase another 32%. 10 years, they're going to increase another 67%. So in going along with that, having that increasing payment schedule on your contribution is going to come in pretty significant, but also trying to get those investment returns back up to that 6.75 will be detrimental to try to keep pace with these increasing benefit payments. Any questions on that?
Trustee Pierce, any comment, question?
So you show our expected benefit payments in 10 years to be $2.38 million. What is our contribution expected to be in 10 years? Or is that the next slide?
Well, if we took your current contribution of 2.2 million, about 3.1 million. So that's just a flat expectation, increasing your current contribution by 3.25% for 10 years. You'd be about 3.1 million of what your contribution would have expected to be.
Joy, what's the percentage of our pension payment just to this part of our village in reference to our actual budget?
And you're talking about compared to what? To the property tax levy, what we actually receive, or the entire budget?
I'm talking about, well, the property tax levy pays for this, correct? Or
Correct. And right now, it's going to be about 50% of the levy, approximately.
So after we pay our pensions for the police department, we've only got 50% of our money left.
Thereabouts, yeah.
That's on the tax levy amount. That doesn't include sales tax and all the other things, but,
Correct.
all right. Thank you.
Trustee Masek?
Well, that's where I started putting stuff in my computer, and I looked at 10 years falling into a quagmire where we're gonna start owing a lot of money in 10 years for a police pension. I just don't want to have officers that we have here 10 years and all of a sudden we can't keep promises. And we're taxing our residents at such a high rate that people can't afford to live here anymore. That's what I'm more worried about, that the pension that we have to fund it at such a great rate because we're at such a low investment environment. And I can ask the expert, do you see that being an issue? If we have the next 5 years, we're at a 2% return.
You know, the problem with funding these pension plans is, you know, there's really only three ways for money to go into the fund. There's investment returns, which is volatile. You have the employee contributions, which is a set fixed amount at 9.91% of pay. And then you have the village contribution, which is, you know, the best you can do. And for some municipalities, it's easier than others. So, you know, understanding your situation and the situation you have, yeah, it very well could be problematic going forward.
Anything else, Trustee Masek?
No.
Trustee Yost?
No questions, Your Honor.
Trustee Dominiac?
No questions at this time, Your Honor.
Thank you. Trustee Paulus?
No questions, Your Honor.
And Trustee Johnson?
Yeah, no questions, Your Honor.
Robert, keep going if you'd like.
So to continue on with the benefit payments, as part of your GASB 6768 report, we have to do what's called a solvency projection. Basically try to say, is the plan going to have enough money to pay their benefits in the future? And right now, historically, this is your contribution amounts for the last 5 years, how much the village has put in compared to what we determine the contributions should be. So last year you put in approximately, as I said before, exactly the amount that was requested, and you're, you know, historically, you know, above 90% of what you've been putting in. However, when we project those amounts forward, if the past is an indication of how the future is going to look, if we project our future contributions forward at 92.59%, the results of our solvency test show that by the year 2069, you will run out of money and no longer have enough money available to pay those benefits. So we're looking at, you know, a 50 years out right now. But, you know, as we alluded to earlier, getting ahead of the problem now, especially when a volatile market, is pretty detrimental to try to control these costs. What the result of this projection does, at least for the financial statements for the village, is when we're talking about your 6768 GASB report, we also have a line item or a balance sheet item that we have an unfunded liability for. And on that amount, it's 29.6 million. So if you recall back at page 2 of the report for the funding report, using a 6.75% interest rate, we're at 23.5 million. So the plan has an additional approximate $6.2 million of unfunded liability that's reported on your balance sheet. Because of that solvency projection, we need to value the plan at 5.77% compared to the 6.75%. So that's another, you know, a component that needs to be considered when you're talking about how the plan is funded, is not just the contribution that's going to go in, also how does it impact the financial statements. And here we're showing, again, an additional $6 million of debt you're showing that you'll have to show on your CAFR.
Okay. Any questions, Trustee Pierce?
So your estimates here on this $29 million liability, is based upon 5 point some odd percent, whereas you discussed with trustee Yost earlier, we're actually only getting 2.2%. And as trustee Masek points out, we're going to be rolling against the Hoover Dam discharge in a couple years. How are other municipalities doing solving this? Because I only see two ways: raising taxes or cutting police departments.
Right. So there's a lot of other ways that some municipalities we work with that are trying to come up with ways to put additional contributions to the fund. Some are tax-based, putting in a gas tax, an electric tax, a water tax, those sorts of things. Probably not the best idea under your circumstances. Other funds are looking at bond issuances, pension obligation bonds, trying to fund the whole thing through that. We've just worked with Freeport. They just completed a $53 million pension obligation bond issuance. Wakanda's looking into it. McHenry's looking into it. Other places like that. So that's another consideration that people are looking at. I'm not recommending it. It is a consideration, especially in light of the low interest rate markets that's out there right now. I think that did entice some villages to take a harder look at it. But in essence, you're really just trading debt for debt by doing so. So there are definitely some pros and cons of going down that road.
So Your Honor and Mr. Keim, can we ask the police pension board and our staff to work on potential solutions that we can at least discuss and look at in the future, not during this part?
I'll refer that to Joy because she works with the pension board. Are they working on things right now, Joy, as far as with the pension board? Because I know it's an issue that you've been discussing in the past.
Not at this time, Your Honor. For the last few months, because of COVID, we haven't had all of our meetings, but I will bring it up at the next pension board meeting.
And then I've got one final thing to say. You showed how last year we paid 99% of what we were recommended to pay. I remember not in the too far distant past where we were paying nothing, and we're paying more now to help catch up. So I think the board that we currently have and all the members of the board should be proud of themselves that we're addressing the issue and we're working on it.
Thank you, Trustee Pierce. Trustee Masek, anything?
No.
Trustee Yost?
Yeah, I'm curious from an actuarial perspective, what would be required in excess of what we're currently funding to extend the life of the pension, say another 20 years beyond 2069. So if we wanted to look at some, it's not a perfect solution, but interim solutions, what would that look like in terms of the dollars that we would need to be contributing in order to extend the life of the pension an additional 20 years? Right.
So one way we can do it is, so right now, like I said, you don't have what we call a formal funding policy in place. That's either ordinance or a direction from the board to state this is how we're going to fund the plan. This is what you've been doing and it's been your practice, but there's nothing in writing saying you have to continue that. So you've made a jump here in the last couple of years to get up into that 90% funded. If we got this average to be at 100%, then theoretically you're funding your plan to 100%, you will no longer have a deficit going forward. If you can, formalize a funding policy to say we're always going to contribute the actually determined contribution to get to 100%, then all of a sudden we will use 100% funding going forward in our projections, and you would then project to show the plan solvent. And then when we do the discount rate in this calculation, we would be able to go back to revert to that 6.75%. And it would save you $6.5 million on your balance sheet. But then you just have to proceed forth with that funding policy and contributing, whatever our recommended amount is. So 2 years ago was 1.83 million. This year you're up to 2.2 million or 2.15 million, and then following that going forward.
Bob, can I explain in 2017 and 18, where we were funded in the 80%, could you explain what happened there, please?
I'm not familiar with the amount of contributions that came in, but when we put this graph together here, we show the amount, like, for example, for 2020, we show the employer contribution for that actually came in during the year. However, we're comparing that to an actuarial evaluation that was completed 2 years ago. And the reason why we do that is because recall, we just did the current valuation as of May 1st of 2020 for the calendar year ended or fiscal year ended 4/30/2021. And we're just trying to approve that today. That then requires the village to go out, input in the information, levy those taxes, collect on all of it. And that usually takes about a 2-year process, 1.5 to 2 year process for all those items to come in. And it also usually is split between 2 different fiscal years when the actual dollars come in. So that's the best apples to apples comparison we can make, noting that there's really an inherent 2-year lag in between the time that the money is requested, calculated, to the time when it actually hits the fund.
And I'd like to add that we used a different actuary prior to 2016. So Lauterbach and Amen, I believe, had used more updated tables, and this is why it appears that we are refunding less than the ADC.
Right. If you looked at the difference between the ADC in 2018 and 17 here, this is actually a 2016 actuarial evaluation, the first one we completed at Lauterbach and Amen, compared to the one that was completed by your prior actuary. You can see a pretty substantial jump in that amount there. Not saying the other actuary is using inappropriate items, but we thought the assumptions we used were a little bit better and a little bit better for the fund to try to target to get the fund up to the appropriate levels.
Thank you, Rob.
Trustee Yost, you have any more comment?
The only thing I'd say is, we're not doing ourselves. I know it seems like, we're not spending as much money, but we're not doing ourselves any favors. And, the current value of the future liability is something that we need to take into consider. So I think looking at a formal funding policy that takes that into account is something that we should be considering, because at some point in the future, this really becomes a very difficult conversation to continue to have.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Trustee Dominiac?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
I would just agree with Trustee Yost and Trustee Pierce that we need to start looking at this in more depth. I think this has been a great presentation, very clear, but obviously we have some work to do. So that's all I have.
Trustee Polis
No comment, Your Honor.
and Trustee Johnson.
No, I agree. I concur with my fellow trustees and what they commented already on.
Okay, thank you. Robert, anything else going further?
No, that's the conclusion of my report. And if there's no other questions, I just appreciate the opportunity to speak with you, Your Honor, and the rest of the trustees, and hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank
You too.
Thank
Your
you.
Honor, real quick, do we have a copy of the actual presentation?
I can, Joy has a copy that I think she can pass out to the members of the board.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks again.
Would you like me to stay on for anything further?
You can for a second until we get through this yet.
Hold on for a little bit.
Okay, thank you, Robert.
You're welcome.
Did we have a motion on this? We have a motion and a second. Any further questions, Trustee Pierce?
No, Your Honor.
Trustee Masek, any further questions?
No questions.
Any further questions, Trustee Yost?
No, Your Honor.
Any further questions, Trustee Dominiac?
No, Your Honor.
Trustee Poles, any further questions?
No, Your Honor.
And Trustee Johnson, any further questions?
No questions, Your Honor.
I'll have the clerk take roll, please.
Pierce,
Aye.
Mason,
Yes.
Yost,
Yes.
Dominiac,
Yes.
Polis,
Yes.
Johnson.
Aye.
6 voting yes, this motion's carried. Next item, consideration of an ordinance providing for the levy of taxes for fiscal year beginning May 1st, 2020 and ending in April 30th, 2021. That would be ordinance number 20-11-39. I laid a motion in a second.
So
to get
moved.
to that. Is that waiving the second reading?
Yes.
Okay, motion by trustee Polis. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, that's seconded by trustee Yost. Any questions on the motion, trustee Pierce?
No, Your Honor.
Trustee Masek, any questions?
No questions.
Trustee Yost?
No questions, Your Honor.
Trustee Dominiac, any questions?
None, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Polis, any questions?
No questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Trustee Johnson, any questions?
No questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. And I'll have the clerk take roll, please.
Pierce,
Aye.
Mason,
Yes.
Yost,
Yes.
Dominiac,
Yes.
Polis,
Yes.
Johnson,
Aye.
We have 6 voting yes. We have nobody voting no. This particular motion's carried. Consideration of an ordinance abating the tax levy for the year 2020 to pay the principal and interest of $1,830,000 of general obligation refunding bonds, utility tax alternative revenue source, Series 2019. That's ordinance number 20-11-40. I'll need
So
a,
moved.
is that waiving the second reading?
Yes.
Okay, motion by trustee Polis. Do I have a second?
Aye. Me.
Okay, trustee Pierce made that second. Any questions, trustee Pierce?
What is this one for? Is this for the swimming pool and stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
Trustee Masek,
No questions, Your Honor.
trustee Yost,
No questions, Your Honor.
okay, trustee Dominiac, any questions?
No, I'm good, Your Honor.
Thank you. Trustee Polis, any questions?
Questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Trustee Johnson, any questions?
And no questions, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Roll call, please.
Pierce,
Aye.
Mason,
Yes.
Yost,
Yes.
Dominiac,
Yes.
Polis,
Yes.
Johnson,
Aye.
Okay, that's 6 voting yes. There's nobody voting no. This particular motion is carried. Consideration of ordinance abating the tax levy for the year 2020 to pay the principal and interest on $4,095,000 general obligation bonds, alternative revenue source, Series 2017, ordinance number 20-11-41. Do I have a motion on this particular ordinance?
So moved.
Waiving the second reading?
Yes.
And I'll second it, waiving the second reading.
Okay, motion by trustee Polis, that's seconded by trustee Pierce, waiving the second reading. Any questions, trustee Pierce?
Just asking Joy what this one's for.
These are the bonds we issued to pay off the IDI note. We had an agreement with them and they were charging, we were paying at 9% interest, and we thought it was in the best interest of the village to issue bonds at a lower interest rate.
Yeah, this is the one we refinanced a couple years ago. This is all paid through the TIF fund, correct?
Correct.
Okay, trustee Masek, any questions?
No questions.
Okay, trustee Yost, any questions?
No questions, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Dominiac, any questions?
None, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Polis, any questions?
No questions, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. And trustee Johnson, any questions?
No questions, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Clerk can take roll, please.
Pierce,
Aye.
Mason,
Yes.
Yost,
Yes.
Dominiac,
Yes.
Polis,
Yes.
Johnson,
Aye.
At 6 voting yes, there are none voting no. This particular motion is carried. Item number 6, consideration of a resolution authorizing a permanent interfund transfer from the East Business District Fund to the Central Business District Fund. That's 20-56. I need a
Move to approve.
I'll second.
motion by trustee Dominiac. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, that was seconded by trustee Pierce. Any questions, trustee Pierce?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Masek, any questions?
No questions, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Yost, any questions?
No questions, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Dominiac, any questions?
No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Polis, any questions?
No questions, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. And then trustee Johnson, any questions?
And no questions, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. And clerk can take roll.
Pierce,
Aye.
Mason,
Yes.
Yost,
Yes.
Dominiac,
yes,
Paulus,
Yes.
Johnson.
Aye.
Okay, 6 voting yes, no nos. This particular motion is carried. Item number 7, we pull from the agenda. The police, they did not ratify their contract yet, so we do not have a ratification. So we had to pull this off of the agenda. So we don't have anything else on the special public meeting here. So that being said, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
so moved,
Second.
Okay, that's made. Trustee Dominiac made the motion. Trustee Johnson seconded it. I would indicate by saying aye.
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 Okay, meeting's closed. Okay, we'll stand up immediately unless somebody wants to take a quick break. We'll go forward. We're good?
Yep.
Okay, we're gonna stand immediately for the committee of the whole and stand up for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
Republic for which it
to the
stands,
republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great, so I think you're free to move about the country.
Good
Yeah.
evening, everyone.
Socially distanced, of course.
Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. We did the pledge. Roll call, please.
Trustee Pierce,
I am present.
trustee Mason,
Here.
trustee Yost.
Here.
Trustee Dominiac,
Here,
trustee Paulus,
Here.
trustee Johnson,
Here.
Mayor
Okay,
Hanson.
I'm here. Okay, first item is the approval of the October 28th, 2020 Committee of the Whole Minute meetings as presented. I need a motion in a second.
so moved,
Second.
Second.
Okay, trustee Dominic made the motion. Trustee Johnson seconded that motion. Any questions, trustee Pierce?
No questions, Your Honor.
Trustee Masek?
No questions.
Trustee Yost?
No questions, Your Honor.
Trustee Dominiac?
none, Your Honor.
Trustee Polis?
No questions, Your Honor.
And trustee Johnson?
No questions, Your Honor.
Okay, roll call, please.
Pierce,
Aye.
Mason,
Yes.
Yost,
Yes.
Dominiac,
Yes,
Paulus,
Yes.
Johnson.
Aye.
Okay, 6 voting yes, motion's carried. Okay, under regular business, our first item today is a request from the Oakwood Knolls Property Owners Association about a vacation request. I would tee that up with staff. Michael, you met with members of the association. So I'll let you lead into this, please. Mike, you're muted. Was he planning on?
Yes,
doing?
okay, so I believe, Your Honor, you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Yes, sorry about that, Your Honor. With respect to this matter, you have a letter from the associations, the Oakwood Knolls Associations, which is in your packet. I believe there has been an updated correspondence, which was, I believe, submitted to the village board today. What the applicant, the association specifically requesting is a vacation of a village-owned street. This fundamentally is a policy issue. Staff has not taken a position whether this is appropriate or not. And at that point, I know there has been extensive feedback from many residents within Oakwood Knolls. I believe those correspondences and those concerns have been forwarded to the board for your full consideration. And based on that fact, we advised the association, the president, that they would have an opportunity to provide or argue their case this evening and provide the village board with their justifications and a basis for their request to vacate this publicly owned street. So with that, Your Honor, I'm not sure if you want to turn it over to the association or you have questions, but at this point, staff has really no further presentation at this point.
Okay, I think at this particular point, I would turn this over to the association because they are leading the charge as far as the ask. I brought it tonight because they asked to be put on the agenda. So I would allow either Jackie or Mike to present to the board so we can at least get it on the table for discussion and see where it leads us.
Okay, so,
Mike,
yeah, I'll lead off, I guess. So to start, on behalf of Oakwood Knolls Property Owners Association, I want to thank all the trustees, village members, Mayor Hanson, as well as Director Garrigan and Administrator Keim for all their help and support. The Oakwood Knolls Property Owners Association is requesting consideration from the village to vacate the right-of-way known as Park Avenue within the subdivision of Oakwood Knolls. The right-of-way is located at the southwesterly corner of Cross Lake. It was designed to provide all residents access to the Oakwood Knolls Park property as well as Cross Lake. The park and access property was conveyed to the association, which was previously known as the Oakwood Knolls Civic Association in 1954, at which the grantor, Crown Realty, stated that this property was for the use and benefit of all property owners and their guests within Oakwood Knolls subdivision. Over the years, Oakwood Knolls and the residents have asked the village to maintain this area. Historically, very little maintenance has been done by the village to maintain this right-of-way, mainly due to the financial burden it puts on both the village and the taxpayers outside of Oakwood Knolls. Oakwood Knolls property owners understand the importance of this property as both for the residents as well as the abutting homeowners. We have again, just last night, in fact, reached out to the homeowners to discuss and share concerns, most of which relate to improving the access area to allow for the launching of small boats and watercraft, increased vehicle traffic, and what the plan would be put in place to protect the abutting homeowners and their properties. The association has put together a small packet, which includes stamp plats, both past and current, a general rendering of our vision, and a proposed budget showing the abilities to maintain the area. In this plan, we have also taken the liberties to include a post and rope barrier to protect the abutting homeowners' properties, although we have asked for their direct input as to what their preferences would be. We have not received feedback yet. Currently, the village has placed boulders as barriers, and we believe this type of barrier could also be used since it's previously been approved and accepted. We understand the burden both emotionally and financially this property has put on the village. The Oakwood Knolls Property Owners Association and the majority of the property owners within the subdivision feel that lifting these burdens from the village and the taxpayers outside of Oakwood Knolls is in the best interest of all. We also like to address that there have been many unwarranted accusations against Oakwood Knolls property owners, members, the abutting homeowners, as well as some village officials. We feel these attacks need to stop sooner than later, and now is the time to move forward in a more positive way. We'd also like to point out before closing my statement that it's been said that one of the most important jobs of being a village official is creating and keeping open partnerships and positive lines of communication between homeowners associations and their local government should be of top priority. Oakwood Knolls Property Owners Association feels tonight is a perfect example of pursuing these both. With that being said, we'd like to thank all of you for your consideration on voting for a call for action at the next village regular meeting.
okay, thank you, Michael. Anybody else? Jackie, you have anything you want to hear from the board or on this particular So,
Does the board have anything to say, or were you guys?
let me just make a quick acknowledgement here. The role here tonight is to acknowledge the receipt of the petition and put it before the village board for decision. That's the same thing we would do for any homeowners association or group for that matter. The people have a right to petition local government for whatever they want. That doesn't mean that they automatically get it.
Sure.
When the petition comes in, it's up to the board to listen carefully to the petitioner and investigate the impact on others that might be affected. Then each trustee has the use of his or her best judgment on the fair and proper balance of the vote. Tonight, we are neither against the petition or for the petition, whether this road is vacated to Oakwood Knolls or not. The road will be open for fishing pier, and the Oakwood Knolls does. And what the Oakwood Knolls property owners do is up to them, as long as there are no federal, state, or local laws violated. So right now, the property, you have the rights currently to do exactly what you're doing. The only difference tonight is you're coming to this particular, our board, asking to convey the property and transfer it over to the association. That's the only difference here, to take it off, basically off of the burden of the village. Again, that has to be presented to the board. The board has to listen to a lot of factors that go into the decision. It might not necessarily move as quickly. So the only fear you might have is if the board doesn't move forward, you have the tendency to the fact that if it doesn't go that way, it stays exactly the way it is. So again, that's why you're here tonight asking. It's not automatic. Nobody on this particular board approached you at all on this, even though there's accusations out there that people are playing politics. I reassure you, there's no politics there at all. And obviously, you guys are coming to the board asking for that particular land. Nobody from this board approached you and say, hey, do this.
One of the things I guess that's been discussed and chatted about with this area is that, yes, in the past, 12 months or I guess 6 months here has been some action and some different things going on down there. And what the Oakwood Knolls board has been taking on is a lot of complaints, a lot of messages, a lot of questions on, the decision that was made and what's down there now. And so I guess it's just, yes, we're trying to once again bring it to the table so that we can have a little bit more of happy community over here. It's not a happy community right now, and there's a lot of different opinions and voicings of concerns, and they're all very important concerns that need to be heard and need to be looked upon. Yes, I guess this is something that is been it's basically been something that we've been trying to figure out how we can make it more positive. The boulders that are down there, we've gotten plenty of complaints of cars being damaged on them, and even the turnabout that has been made specifically for us to be able to maneuver down there. We've had car mirrors knocked off, vehicles being damaged. It's just not, it's not working out. So we do need to bring it back to the table and kind of discuss our next moves.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Jackie?
Well, I do know that this is a very difficult issue, and I do know it's very hard to accept, to maybe be open-minded and bringing it back up. But I really do see good intentions and for down there that the community has brought to us different ideas here and there. One community member brought up having a blessing box down there to have donated life jackets and fishing poles for the community, because that's a need in our community. Another member, family, brought to our attention of having like a wave runner docking station down there. Again, that's the community voicing out, saying these are their needs. So that's what we're really just trying to accommodate, is the community's needs here.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. Thank you for letting us speak tonight.
Okay, I'll let my board, ask some questions too, since you're both there. Obviously, I have a lot of history there and I want to kind of take myself out of it because obviously I have 60 years of living there. And obviously I'll probably be the first one to be criticized for that because obviously I do enjoy the subdivision. But I will start with trustee Pierce. Do you have any questions? I know we had some other things sent to us. All the trustees have all the correspondence, either for or against this particular transaction or how we put it forward. So obviously it's not all 100% positive when it comes to that. So you do have some people out there that do have some concerns, and I feel that this board has to address both the positives and the negatives. And if the board feels they can get to that point, then that might be something. If it happens tonight, maybe. If not, we just have to, get to that next level. So that being said, trustee Pierce, you got any of your questions you would like to ask of the homeowners association board?
I pretty well understand what they're doing, but I would like to say a few things. First of all, I do agree with one thing Mr. O'Mara said. There's a lot of things being said that aren't really necessary and germane to the conversation. The accusations against Oakwood Knolls putting down all this gravel illegally. I don't think they did that intentionally illegally. I think they may have done it with the best of intentions and believing they had permission. But they may have gone overboard with it. I don't know. Things that the homeowners say about the Oakwood Knolls Property Owners Association, it's unwarranted. I'll be honest. I sat here today and read all the letters that came from each side, and I'm getting equal letters from each side on this debate. I've gotten phone calls from residents who have lived here for 60 years, and they are absolutely livid on the other side. And at one point tonight, I was like, I can't take this. My stomach is literally ready to heave because it's getting so vicious over this boat pier issue. So we all need to tone down the rhetoric on it and look at the facts. And as you said, Mayor, we're gonna either vote on it or not vote on it at the next meeting or whenever the board recommends voting on it. There's supposedly a package of information with plats and stuff. I haven't seen that yet. This is Thanksgiving evening, and this stuff has only been going on for a couple days since this was brought on the agenda. I think there's some more study that needs to be done on this. I think we have to remember, and I'll be very honest. 20 years ago, I was the Oakwood Knolls Homeowners Association president. And then I was elected trustee, and I had to resign because I was elected trustee, because I love Oakwood Knolls. I lived in Oakwood Knolls for 30 some odd years. I've been involved in Oakwood Knolls. I very deeply care about Oakwood Knolls, but I am representing the village. So any decision I make is based upon the village and what is right for all the people in the village. And that makes it harder on me, probably makes it harder on the mayor, makes it harder on some of the other board members because they want to do what's right for everybody. And they also want to work with Oakwood Knolls. I don't know what the solution is at this point because there's been no solution. No matter what we try, there's no solution. So I'm willing to listen to the rest of the board members. But at this point, I think we need to wait and study the facts some more.
Thank you, trustee Pierce. Thank you. Trustee Masek?
Well, I also lived there 30 years ago. I had a house there. And if we abate this property, this is going to be basically a neutral transition. I don't understand the hoop-de-doo of who owns the property, whether it's the village or the association. If the association owns the property and we give it to them, are they going to take care of it better than the village? Because the complaint was the village hasn't done its share to upkeep it. One, the village would take it off its liability table. They're going to hand it over to them. I don't see the rest of the town using a dead end road. I'm sure the association, the president, they've done their research with their members. The reason they approached the village, because it's in the best interest for that property to be turned over to an association, to be run by the association. If we abate it and give it to the association, and it becomes their issue, not Antioch, the Village of Antioch's issue. So some of the stuff I did read, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It does make a lot of sense to me just to sit there and say, and when I remember back that this property should have gone to the association in history, that back in the day, you needed association passed even to use that property, because had anybody known 30 years ago, well, it's a village road, anybody could have gone back there. That wasn't the idea. It was all considered, when I had a house there, that was association property. So, but it wasn't treated as association or village property. It was treated as association property. You're thrown off the property if you didn't pay dues to walk back there. You get chased off. So I just don't understand why the association didn't own it 30 years ago. So this whole back and forth makes no sense. I think the association should own this dead end road. They should be in charge of it. It just makes sense to me. That's my comments.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Yost?
I have a question for, I guess it's more for Attorney Long, with regard to what the process looks like and what obligation we have, just understanding, like, if we choose to abate the road, do we have to offer it to both parties? Is there some semblance of fairness that we have to give the adjacent properties an opportunity to participate in that? How does that work?
Well, it's a little more complicated than you might think. Yeah, there is, if it's a strict vacatur, it's the technical term. The statute says you're supposed to offer it to either to the adjoining property owners. Problem is that doesn't solve any of the issues that are involved in this particular case. Their title to the road doesn't change the fact that the road is a platted road. Whether it's dedicated or not, it's still a platted road. And being a platted road under the Illinois Plat Act, which goes back to the 1890s, actually, it says that the road must be forever open and available to all people within the subdivision one way or another. There's a second approach that you can use, which is to treat the dedication as the actual ownership of the road itself, and that's generally what we consider roads to be, in the form of municipal ownership. And then the sale of it would be a quit claim or a sale of the road, which is a little different than a vacatures. And under that environment, you're not really obligated to offer it to anybody in particular. You can follow you can do that approach, but it takes a supermajority of the board in order to sell the property. It takes a three-fourths majority in order to go that route. So like I say, it's a little bit complicated. I didn't want to get into all the details of that, into more, if it wasn't necessary. And I don't know at this point in time, there's no legal issue on this. This is policy for the board to consider. You have those avenues available to you, and you have a petition in front of you, and that's what the law requires, that you evaluate that petition.
All right. Anything else, Trustee Yost, at the present time? Trustee Yost, anything? He's muted.
I guess that would help, right? So I know there were some numbers presented by the homeowners association. I think it would be helpful, as I understand it, it's not a a mandatory participation. It is voluntary. So understanding some financial projections, I think, with regard to how changes in participation, maybe from a historical perspective, and then maybe some projections going forward, how those might impact the budget and the ability to continue to maintain that on an ongoing basis might be helpful.
And that's for Bob, or you want somebody from the
Oh, no, that
association?
would be for Michael and Jackie.
Okay.
I don't think we have any insight into what that
Right.
would look like.
Right. Go ahead.
But I'd be happy to take the lead on this one. So I believe everybody got a sheet on the proposed budget. And I believe Trustee Yost, your question was, what were some of our projections and how we seen future growth? So we based we did a 3-year budget plan, and we based it very conservatively on a 5% growth. Currently, we don't know if it's because of the current situation with the nation and the COVID. But this year we did numerous extremely successful events. We had a 40% increase in membership from last year alone. We have had that some of the board members are well aware of. Again, some very successful events have drawn in great support for our decision making and our plan to develop the area back there. We have a lot of new members. There's a great turnover within Oakwood Knolls. I'm sure most of you are aware of all the new young families, children and whatnot that are there. It makes our amenities very valuable, both to property values as well as for personal enjoyment. So as far as our membership growing, like I said, we did that on a 5%. So I think that was very conservative. As far as funding the area, what we are deciding, or what we've proposed, is that all of the financing and funding to maintain this area that has been basically neglected in the past would be generated from this area, allowing us to keep our membership funds, at least up to 90% of our membership funds for the beach and park area. In return, we would take 10% of the membership funds, put it towards the this beach the pier and access area. We would generate funds through our current boat slips that are down there now. We currently have 10 spots, generating $1,000 a year. We talked about adding 2 wave runner stations, small ramps. I shouldn't say stations, because they're just going to be basically shore ramps that they can pull up onto. That's been discussed at generating an additional $200 a year. Then there'd be a small boat launch. That launch, currently right now, we have it limited at 25 keys. Those keys would generate $65 each, and approximately $1,625 annually. We also installed kayak slips or kayak racks. We have 8 of those, generating $200 a year annually. And then of course, on you'll see the 10% plus a 5% growth, which again, we think is very conservative. Our fundraising has been through the roof. We did a very conservative fundraising campaign. You see, we generated $1,250 or $1,750 very shortly. We think that we could do that repeatedly year after year. We actually lowered it in 22, 23, just to be conservative. We didn't want anybody to think that we're just inflating numbers for disbelief. Then we went into, what our general costs are down there. What we did was we took the weed control funds that we usually spend out of our membership and we included it into the pier and access area. So in other words, what we're proposing is that the funds generated from this area would go to maintain this area and the lake. That would allow for substantial growth up in our park area, our beach area maintenance, and all of our upcoming events that we're planning. You know, just this year alone, you know, we did a whole bunch of them, and we still have two very important ones coming up. One of which is our Secret Santa. So with COVID, we managed to come up with a plan to social distance properly, and we already have over 33 children in the neighborhood signed up for Secret Santa. So this is, again, one of the areas where we're generating positive support through the community. These are things that in the past, you know, we haven't seen, but you know, this has been something special that's happening. We think our continued growth is very important. So you'll see that we also put general maintenance. We tacked on $1,000 to that area just in general maintenance. That will be for upkeep of new piers, fixing the fence line, putting in the gate for the ramp area, maybe a picnic table. Our blessing box is already paid for, but in order to put gifts in there for the children and some of the families that want to come down there. And then we also put in, one of the big concerns that was brought up is the lawn care and general maintenance down there as far as the overgrowth and whatnot. We've put in $800 there for the first year. That's $100 a month. We based that the lawn care would be an 8-month process. That we feel is very, you know, a little high, because we do get a lot of volunteer support down there from one close particular homeowner who has asked us actually to not outsource it, because that's a source of fulfillment for them. We're going to help out a little bit there. There was also some current concern brought up that, you know, what about the debris, and that garbage is, people are going to bring garbage and trash down there. We've included the Groot costs. Currently, we don't pay fees for Groot. They consider us a nonprofit organization, and they typically don't charge us any monthly fees. We've included it into our budget. So we're putting out, we're estimating approximately $4,900 a month, or a year rather, going out. But we're looking conservatively at bringing in $5,525. That also doesn't include committed launch funds that we already have generated. So as you can see, with the funding balances each year, it's going to grow considerably. We predict by the end of the first year, we'll have 625. It's going to grow to 1860. And by the third year, we should be over $3,000 in additional funding for this area. So we have what we believe a well thought out plan, a plan that's never before been put before anybody. And we have a way to support the area. If you look at the rendering that we sent in, you'll see we're not looking to overdevelop the area in any way. I know that the rendering is a general description, but I'm aware that all of the trustees and board members are familiar with the area, and you know, if you can vision what the area currently looks like as opposed to what we're suggesting, and how much better this is going to be for everybody, including the abutting homeowners. This is a real special time for Oakwood Knolls to grow, do the right thing, make our residents happy. We understand, and it was stated by one of the village board members, we're never going to make everybody happy, but you know, damn it, we can try. And that's what we're proposed to do. We're proposed to work with everybody. We want to end the animosity. It's just, you know, like Trustee Pierce said, I don't think anybody intentionally wants to, you know, hurt anybody or take things away from them and whatnot. We should all be looking to grow together. This is an opportunity for us to grow together. I hope that answers your questions, Trustee Joyce.
I appreciate I appreciate the thoroughness of the response. Thanks.
Anything else, Trustee Yost?
Nothing else, Your Honor.
Okay, Trustee Dominiac? Trustee Dominiac, your speaker's off. There you go.
Okay, sorry.
That's all right.
Mike, thank you for that review of the finances. I look at the picture and I see that you're planning on putting a launch in, and what if you don't get the permits for that? I mean, how does that affect the financials and your ability to continue to support this?
So great question. Actually, we have contacted the Army Corps of Engineer, and we've talked with the branch that works the Fox Lake area, and Army Corps Engineer actually governs the lake because it is split by both states, Wisconsin and Illinois. So they are the governing body. They determine what can and cannot be done at the shoreline. They have no issues whatsoever with us putting in a small gravel ramp, whether we wanted to do a concrete ramp or whatever we wanted to do there. They have no issues with Cross Lake because there is no commerce. This has been discussed previously, and our Army Corps has no issues. We talked to Lake County. We're currently trying to generate a letter that we hope to present at the next village board meeting when this is hopefully brought up for action, that would show that Lake County Watershed Authority has no issues with anything that we're doing over there. So this is really, I think, falls more on the village, and like Attorney Long said, it's more, it appears to be more of just a policy issue.
Right, I agree with that. So, you know, I think I'm reflecting on some of the comments that were made by the mayor, by Jackie and others. Certainly, we want to come up with a solution that's going to keep everybody maybe not 100% happy. And I thought that's what we did in July, but apparently we didn't. And it seems like it was good for some people, but many others didn't like it and have continued to push forward on trying to come up with another solution, which is fine. And certainly you have the right to petition. I'm concerned, and I shared this with the mayor, that we're having this over Zoom. And I think it's great that you and Jackie have had an opportunity to present this to us. But I also know that I got a lot of things in email today from people that have different views. And as I read through them, all I could think of was, how is this different from other subdivisions, homeowners associations, property owner associations, whatever you want to call it, that have come before us and asked the village to get involved in something that's controversial, I guess, for lack of a better word, or there's not agreement. So my suggestion would be that we not move forward on this until we get some more concrete sense from multiple perspectives about the potential for this project and the potential for it to achieve what you're talking about, Mike, for everyone to grow together, which sounds familiar. I think we need to ask the parties involved to get together and come back to us with a united front, even if it's not 100%, to say, you know, here's where we're together and here's where we still have issues. But I'm hearing a little bit different tonight than I am reading. So that's where I'm concerned. and feel that we need to hear both sides. And I don't think we can't do that tonight, obviously. And emails are not always, it's back and forth. And somebody sends an email and somebody tells somebody about that email, and then another email comes to refute what that person said. And I just think that a face-to-face would be much more effective before we make this decision. So that's all I have on this, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Michael, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I appreciate your thoughts, Trustee Dominiac. I was just wondering, you talked about both sides having said we could come together as a united front. I think if I understand you correctly, you're asking us to come as a united front, both with the abutting homeowners and the residents or Oakwood Knolls Property Owners Association. Is that correct?
What I'm looking for is some sense for the board to understand that if we do or don't vacate the road, what's the implications for the entire area? And, I'm hearing you say one thing, and I don't doubt the veracity of what you're saying, but I'm reading something that kind of conflicts with that. So as we have said to other subdivisions, homeowners associations, whatever you want to call it, go back and do your homework and come back to us with a plan that may not make everybody 100% happy, but it sounds like right now the division in your area is so strong that it would be hard for me to vote one way or the other without hearing from both sides and hearing that both sides are communicating and have come to at least an understanding of each other and where they want to go.
Mike?
So I just like to respond to that. And respectfully, this has gone on. I mean, we won't go back, over the 30 years that we all know that this has been a contentious area. But we certainly all know, everybody here, those watching as well, that this has gone on for the past 19 months. Everybody is well aware of both sides' feelings. Everybody's aware that there's a 99% likelihood nobody's going to come to a full agreement. We spent 3 hours on Saturday with the homeowners, trying to inform them of the plan, trying to explain to them, this is what we would like. What would you guys like? What are some of your concerns? Then again, last night, we spent over 2.5 hours asking the homeowners what concerns they have and whatnot. We've tried to address all of them. We had a long list of concerns that were brought up as far as just the general cleanup, the ungraded gravel, removal and repositioning of the boulders, markers to protect the homeowners, designated parking, lawn care, shoreline protection, signage, launch capabilities, maintenance to the fence, updating piers in boating and fishing, possible placement of picnic tables, gatherings, placement of blessing containers, kayak wave runner storage. We did all of this. We've been doing this for 19 months.
I understand that because I've been
time
on
that
the
we put
board and
this
I've heard all of this, Mike. And, as long as we're saying respectfully, what I would like to see is more evidence that the people that you're saying you worked with are on board with this. And I understand it's not going to be 100%. I understand that completely. But I'm seeing things that were being raised in some of these emails. And all I'm saying is that I think we need to hear from the other people just as we're hearing from you. And that's all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you, Trustee Dominiac. Trustee Polis, I'll go to you next.
Yeah, I sort of echo Trustee Dominiac and Trustee Pierce a little bit. I talked to Mike this week, and we had a good conversation. And one of my things was to him was to have, to come to some kind of an agreement. And I understand that it's never going to be 100% agreement, but to come up with some kind of an agreement to come to us. And each side can explain where they differ. But if we're close and we can do things, then I'd be maybe able to agree with it. I told Michael to go back and treat this thing like he lived in one of those 4 houses, and what would his opinion be if he lived there? And seeing some of the letters that came through in those emails, it seemed like there was a lot of things that got thrown at us really quickly that we haven't had time to decipher yet. And then some of the stuff that Attorney Long just said, as far as what could be done with the property, same thing. And I don't know that we'd be ready to go with it at the next board meeting. And I sort of would like to hear, both sides come in and be in the room. I think where it differs a little bit from what Trustee Dominiak was saying is that I don't think in some of those other cases that we owned any of the property. In those disputes on some of the other subdivisions, whereas we have this little piece here, which, puts us in the middle. But I still think, we need to find out what's factual in some of those emails that came through today and what's not. And then where are there differences and where there's some commonalities, and what could the other group agree to. But I think we need a little bit more information before moving forward, and we need a little bit of agreement from both sides. And Michael, you gave a nice presentation on what you wanted, and what everybody on your side wanted, but I didn't hear a lot of what the other side wanted and what they might be in agreement with. So I too would like to hear them and hear them in a meeting, and have both sides represented.
Thank you. Trustee Johnson?
So I got a few things I'd like to say is, first of all, is Trustee Polis said exactly what one of my points was going to say of what Trustee Dominiak brought up. I think the biggest difference we have in this situation opposed to the other HOAs that we did not want to get involved is the taxpayers, the entire taxpayers of Antioch own a very controversial piece of property in that subdivision. So that kind of drags us right in the middle of this thing, whether we like it or not. With that being said as well, under circumstances, I read all the letters too, and I see both sides. And I am hoping we can come up with an agreement that, again, not everybody's going to be 100%. Like most good negotiations, no one's 100% satisfied, but everybody walks away somewhat satisfied. And that's where I'm hoping we can get to the point on this. On a few more things, I do think we need to be a little proactive. And as much as I would like to get everybody in a room and so forth, we just do not know when in reality that's ever going to happen. So, I have maybe a suggestion that we could possibly do, that might help the situation, but I don't think we should let this whole epidemic slow this process down. I don't think it's really necessarily fair. I think we need to do our due diligence and our research and so forth, but I also don't think that we should sit and wait till we can get everybody in the room. Again, we don't know when that's going to happen. So I think we need to be proactive. If, for example, we do decide to vacate and they move forward with the repairs and so forth, they got to talk to the Army Corps of Engineers. This process takes time. I mean, spring is far away, but it does come. I'm sure they would like to get it going up by next summer. So again, I think we just need to push forward and not necessarily wait for everybody to get in a room. I like some of the comments that Trustee Masek brought up as well. And I do agree with that as far as if we vacate this, it gets rid of the liability for us. It is a dead end road. I mean, it's a road to nowhere, so to say, for us. I mean, as a village, what are we going to do? It's a village road, but ultimately it belongs to the residents of Oakwood Knolls, not necessarily to the entire residents of the village of Antioch. So I do see, good reason to possibly vacate this property. But with that being said, too, is to go along with Trustee Dominiac and Trustee Polis, as far as getting more research, is, as much as, keep pushing forward on this, is possibly a survey to all the households in Oakwood Knolls that we can put out. Again, the problem with surveys is you put up 200, for example, you're going to get 200 different surveys and different opinions. But that might be a way that we as a village could kind of get insight. Jackie mentioned that a lot of residents are coming forward with suggestions and with community needs and a blessing box and let's do this and let's do this. Again, this survey maybe is a way where we could kind of channel everything together and maybe help answer the questions that all us trustees have. So anyways, with that being said, that's the only comments I have.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Johnson. I got two of my trustees want to say something. I just want to make a comment that I spent some time with Mike on the phone today and also Jackie. My role here as mayor is to bring these things to the board to make sound decisions. I too read all these emails from people that had concerns. I take offense to some of these things that personally attacked me on things that have no place with this road at all. I'm sorry I grew up there. I'm sorry I lived there, from the standpoint of people claiming that this is a political move. It's not a political move. I don't make that decision. The board makes the decision. And the fact that they're even trying to smear me with other allegations that are unfounded is appalling to me. And the fact of the matter is, both Jackie and Michael know that they got two risks here. One, if the board doesn't want to push forward, they're back at square one. So I suggested to both of them, and Jackie and Mike can both concur, is the fact that they walk away with good communications with the board, and everybody at least comes to some conclusion that it can work, or you go back to the 15 and 30-year drought that you might call it, that this property goes back to what it was, and you have what you have. So I'm a proponent of fairness. This is not about a political move on any of our parts. This is about what's going to make the subdivision whole. I talked to Jerry a little bit today, and that's why he brought up the questionnaire. I talked to the attorney, and we need a neutral party on this, because you have the Oakwood Knolls Association that has residents that live near the area that are affected by it that are voicing a big concern, and then you have people that live on the outskirts of that area that are definitely proponents of it. But we're basing our decisions on a petition that was given to us based on a different plan, a plan that was owned by the village as far as a road, and putting it to use for what it is today. So I think, again, it's not up to me. It's going to be up to the board to move this forward. And if I feel that the support's there from the board, we let the chips fall where they fall. But again, if you do it hastily and just try to push something through, that's when you have problems. And again, maybe we come up with a neutral questionnaire and base it on a factual thing based on this particular plan, not a fishing pier that's being taken away, and do it that way. Again, these are just suggestions. And like I said, I think the board, we have a very good board, and I think this particular board is very conscientious to doing the right thing. And I feel if it's done correctly, I think the board will do the right thing. So that being said, I will definitely turn it back over to Trustee Pierce, who had his hand waved.
Thank you, Your Honor, for turning it back over to me. A couple issues came up during the discussion. The first one, Trustee Johnson stated that this road belonged to the residents of Oakwood Knolls. And I just wanted to confirm with the attorney that that the road is currently owned by the village, and that's why we're in this.
I did say that, Trustee, but I said the road is ultimately owned by all the taxpayers of the village of. The road is owned by my exact quote was, the road is owned by all the taxpayers of Antioch, but ultimately the road sits in Oakwood Knolls and does, in my opinion, belong to them. It should be in for the subdivision. So I did say it belongs to all the taxpayers of Indiana.
Thank you, Trustee Johnson. I've sat here and listened. The Trustee Masek, who said it was always meant to be theirs. I had a resident who's lived here longer than the mayor has call me today, and they were livid that it never was intended to be Oakwood Knolls property, that it was always the way it was. So there's dispute on both sides here. And we stood up and said the Pledge of Allegiance, I think at least 3 times tonight. And in there's the line justice for all. And when I say justice for all, I think of the individual. The individual needs justice too, not just the masses. So we need to, as Trustee Dominiak says, listen to everybody here and get input from everybody. And somehow they have to reach a conclusion, because last year, the conclusion we reached was at the point of Solomon trying to split the baby, and the baby's not happy. So we're back to dealing with it again. I don't know what the solution is, because this battle's been going on, as Pam Goldbogen said in her letter today, when she moved here 35 years in 1985, and her dad said she had to be on the board because of those lake people who were always running things and making it difficult for everybody else. If I read her letter correctly, this battle has been going on since this subdivision started. And I don't know where the solution is at this point. We gave it a good try last year, and obviously it's not happy. I will say Oakwood Knolls is doing a very strong effort in making it better. Their parks are better, their signage is better, their maintenance is better. They're doing a lot to make Oakwood Knolls better. But at the same time, I don't know how we're going to solve this solution, because if we give this plan that's been in motion for quite a while our approval, then we hurt the people over in those houses. If we give the plan disapproval, then we hurt Oakwood Knolls. I'd like to hear from everybody, and I'd like to see some sort of solution that works for everybody, but I don't see it happening. And until I see it happening, I'm not for this at this point. I'll just be point blank. And that's all I have.
Trustee Polis, you had your hand up, I believe.
Yeah, I just sort of had some similar comments to Trustee Pierce. There is that, Trustee Johnson made and some Trustee Masek also made the point that, if we gave this up, we don't have to be involved in it. But if we give it up, we're sort of bailing on those 4 people, because then they're up against the masses. And so I'd rather see some kind of an agreement done ahead of time, prior to us. If we decide to give up that land, I'd rather there be an agreement before we did that. And the other thing is, Michael, your presentation regarding the economics of it, you said you didn't know if this, things were picking up down there last year because of the, people not traveling and things because of the pandemic. I remember a gentleman coming in, what was the gentleman before, the older guy that was charge of the association? He came in like 2 years ago and told us that there were only like 40 people in the subdivision that were members of the and there was no money. And what I'm afraid of is if the pandemic's over and things go back to normal and people start getting out, and all of a sudden you don't have the need for going to a local lake because they can go somewhere else and they can be out in crowds, that it might return back to where you don't have a lot of association fees and a lot of people having the need to go down there. There's not as many local things going on. So those were just a couple of comments I wanted to make.
Can I comment too one more time, Mayor?
Okay, go ahead.
So once again, I too would love to have an agreement with all the parties. And I said earlier, you guys can check the minutes, is if is with all negotiations, we're never going to make anybody 100% happy. I hope we come up with something that makes everybody at least walk away that they got something out of the deal. But the thing is, I know Trustee Pierce, you said justice for all. I mean, we're all in politics. So, I mean, as much as we want to appease every single person, we sit here as a board. I've been here for 8 years. We make very tough decisions. And a lot of our decisions, we are never going to please everybody. It just is not going to happen. At some point, again, I'm not saying for this. I'm not saying I'm against it. I too want to get more information. I too think I suggested the questionnaire. I'm just saying at some point, we may have to make a decision that may hurt one person, two persons, 50. We have to make a decision that's what's the best for the situation and come up with a solution, in my opinion. Again, we're in the political world. We've been here 8 years with many tough decisions that we've had to make. We're never going to please everybody.
Your Honor, are you done, Trustee Johnson?
Yeah, yes, I am.
Your Honor, if I could speak, I raised my hand on the computer. Larry, you look frozen. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We lost him.
Yeah,
Now, can you hear me?
I think everybody can hear you, Mary,
I
but
can,
Hear you, Mary.
Okay, well, nobody said they could hear me, so that's what
I don't, I
Um,
don't know. Yeah.
Anyway, I just want to comment to your point, Trustee Johnson. I thought we had a solution that nobody was happy with, but apparently that wasn't sufficient. In terms of my comment about this being similar to other homeowner associations, I was using that as an analogy of how we've said to people, you know, you got to figure out how you can make this work for the most people. And it does take on another level because we own the road, where in the other situations, you're right, Trustee Polis, we did not have that skin in the game. But my point was, and I'm pleased to hear that some of you are in agreement with me, that we need to just get a little bit more information, hear a little bit more. And, you know, as I was
Trustee
reading.
Dominiac, can you
Yeah.
pause just for a moment? Mayor and Lori both got disconnected, so if you could just give it a moment until they get reconnected.
Sure.
Thank you.
I could do a little song and dance while we're waiting.
I was going to join you with the dance in the song. Everybody would drop off then, though, probably.
I thought they got frozen.
Jim, you look frozen.
No, he's just not moving.
I need to get up and move around, actually.
Well, I didn't have a whole lot more to say. It was just a function of wanting to get the input. And if it can't be face to face, then maybe we set it up so that people can be on Zoom. I've been in meetings where people, a lot larger number of people than this have been on, and you use the hand raising capability to announce people and control the meeting. So it could be done that way.
Zoom also has survey capability.
Yeah, that's true. I think if we did a questionnaire, Trustee Johnson, it would require getting everybody's, well, my experience with that kind of thing is that email's better to do it like on a survey monkey or something.
I really think until the mayor's back on that the meeting is on hold because he's the chair of the meeting.
Okay,
Sorry.
that's all right.
I would agree with that. Just going into the details isn't going to be good at this point.
Yeah, okay. Then I'll go back to my song and dance.
Hey, has anybody listened to me on the radio yet?
Every Monday.
I meant to Trustee Polis on this. I forgot.
I'm back. Okay, I'm sorry, we lost connection here. So where were we?
I was just finishing up saying that,
Yeah, I missed your whole statement, so that's fine.
oh, you missed the whole thing?
Yeah, we just.
Well, basically what I was saying was that I was using the analogy of other homeowners association issues to point out that I thought that there was a need for some more consensus among this group before we make a decision, and that there's options of getting that information, whether it's a questionnaire, which is an interesting idea, or Zoom has capabilities where we could allow more people to speak if we can't meet together live for a period of time. So that was it.
Okay.
That's all I had.
Okay. All right, both Jackie and Mike, we had this, basically I had this discussion with you today that, there was a possibility that this would not get 100% support. And I think there is mechanisms here is that we could have a special meeting just for this and get everybody, even if it's on a Zoom, where everybody can speak. Also, having the village work with the attorney, possibly to draft some questions, good questions to the homeowners that live in the subdivision, both Oakwood Knolls, Abbey Estates, and the Zellinger Lane, because I believe Abbey Estates also is associated with you, and see if we can't come up with a solid plan to go forward, so everybody's at least on the same page as far as this particular board.
Okay, Larry, I'm sorry to interrupt. One more thing. Can Attorney Long put in writing what the options he presented were, because he got garbled during a couple of them.
Yeah, we would, have a special meeting just for this. Everybody could be just like we have here, be on a Zoom. We can have representatives possibly speak on behalf of groups, possibly, instead of having 100 people speak. If that's the case, maybe have people that can represent both sides, if there is a side to any of this, and maybe come up with some questions that pertain to this particular item, and present it to the entire association as far as the homeowners, not just the association, but the homeowners that live there. And maybe we can come to some conclusion that we can at least have something to vote on as a group. So.
I agree with Trustee Pierce. So if we could get those options from Attorney Long in writing, so we could see those.
Yeah, give me a couple of days. I'll be glad to get you a memo on.
Sure. Yeah, I don't need them right away. As long
Turn
as
it
we
over.
see them.
Tomorrow's Thanksgiving. We expect you to do it tomorrow.
So going back to the president of the homeowners association, Jackie, you're there.
Yes.
I know Mike's your spokesperson on this. Again, based on our discussion earlier today, why don't you give us your viewpoint on it if you have one?
Well, I'm all for doing a survey so that we can get a very good idea of what the community wants. We could sit here and I could delve into, all the different concerns that the other residents or homeowners did have. However, I do not feel that they may have shared possibly what they shared in your letters, because it seems like they want a lot more than what they've discussed with us. I do know that down there, like we have one homeowner who is concerned with, the blockage and the views of the shed that we put up, or the blessing box that we put up. Another one, she is concerned with children swimming in the water if we have the boat there, and like the gas from the boats and stuff. I mean, little things like that I know are their concerns, or at least that they voiced to us. Another one is if we remove half of our fence and only leave it half up, like we were trying to open part of it up to the actual full community, so that you didn't just have to be, a paying member, but, so-and-so wants to come down to go fishing, okay. And, that was another concern down there, is that if we remove our fences on our property, that the homeowners children might possibly get out and get into the water. You know, these are all the little concerns that, I shouldn't say little, I didn't mean that, my apologies. But these are all not all, some of the concerns that were brought to us. However, like I said, from listening to, hearing you guys say that you did receive a lot of emails and phone calls and whatnots, I'm sure there was a lot more in those emails than what was divulged last night to us. So yes, if we could possibly do some type of a survey or get to know, you know, what the rest of this community wants besides just those that are not shy enough, you know, to voice their opinions. We would like to get to know what everybody wants so that we can make the best decision here.
Yeah, I personally believe that if we went forward, like Mike wants to go forward, and I, you know, he's worked on this a long time. You know, he's got a personal feeling toward it, and I know he's got goals in mind. But we also have to look at the big picture, and my goal and my job is, in my position, is to make sure that we at least come to a good consensus of the people, because we represent everybody, not just a small group. So again, we have to represent the majority.
He's down on the mat. That's on strike one and strike two on Javi Baez, who had been swinging.
Who's playing Cubs stuff? We're hearing scores.
This is back. I don't think you have to go with the breaking ball at all.
Somebody's got their radio on.
Yes, Ted's sports show.
Yes, Ted, your sports show's on.
No, I think that's Jerry listening to Cubs stuff.
So what I'm trying to say is, Mike, is the fact that I'm in a position where we have to make the right decisions for everybody. And the fact that you have a passion for it, I know your association has a passion for it, but I think to move too quickly and not get all the input from all concerned, I think we'd be doing a disservice to the Okonos community. And I think doing it the right way, the way we should be doing it together as an organization and a group, I think the overall decision will be much more sound, and hopefully everybody can come to some kind of an agreement that either they're for or against this particular move. Go ahead.
Can I just, I'm
Go
okay
ahead.
to talk now? Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I do just want to point out that, you know, listening to all the board members and whatnot, and I actually, it'll be a surprise, but I do agree with all of you and your positions. I actually think it's a better approach to get a full survey or opinions and whatnot out there. I do think that's a good idea. I would just like to know, you know, this has gone on for, you know, almost nearly 19 months, this current situation. I don't want us to continue to drag our feet like we've done year in and year out. So I would like some specifics on exactly how a survey is generated, developed, and who presents it, and how soon and when. What is the process for generating a survey?
I will.
Can I make a comment to that first, Mayor?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment about that. Go ahead, trustee.
Because about a year and a half ago, we made a decision. Then it was brought back about 6 months ago, and we made another decision. And so we made decisions on two things. So that in our mind, it hadn't been going on. Now this is a different thing that's come in front of us, and we're going to rule on this. But you know, we've made decisions twice, and it hasn't been to the satisfaction of some people, so they keep bringing it back. But we've made decisions twice on this. So the 19 months or whatever that it's been dragging on hasn't dragged on in our minds, because we've made decisions twice on this.
I echo that, trustee
And what's
Polis.
been brought up this time is completely different, because we're being asked to vacate that piece of land, which is a whole different issue than what was brought to us before. So I disagree a little bit with those comments that this has been going on for 19 months, because we've made two decisions already, and now we're being asked to make another one. So in our minds, we've put this to bed a couple of times, and you know, now we're trying to get a resolution that we can all live with. But this is a different matter than the other matters were. So
I agree with you, trustee Polis. I trust, you know, I look at this as we made that decision, I believe in July, wasn't it? So that's 4 months ago. And, to talk about moving forward, we've been talking about this for almost at least an hour. And I think we have a game plan here. And I think that rather than get into the weeds, for lack of a better way to describe it, in terms of how we're going to do this, that, Your Honor, certainly we have staff that can come back with a game plan for how to do the survey, and we can make sure that the appropriate parties are included in that. But I think, we have some other agenda items. It's getting late and they're
Yeah,
very important to the
Trustee-
entire village.
Trustee Dominiac,
I'd
I'm
like
well
to
aware.
suggest we move forward.
Yeah, I'm well aware of it, and I do run the meeting, so I get that, and I appreciate that very much. And we will definitely get staff involved, and obviously that's what the point of being here tonight, and we will definitely not rush this. This is gonna be done properly, it's gonna be done with transparency, and it's gonna be done to where the village is gonna drive this with these groups, knowing that hopefully we come up with a game plan that we can look at together with both the homeowners that live near to this place and also the entire subdivision. And I'm sure between the attorney, our staff, or even a professional questionnaire, so we make sure that these aren't tainted either way. You want to make sure it's as neutral as possible, so it's fair for everybody, that these questions are not biased, because surveys could be swayed any way you want it to. So we want to make sure that whatever these questions are solid questions that are fair to both parties that have concerns on this property. So that being said, we'll end this at this point. I will definitely get with my staff and make sure that we move in the appropriate manner, so we make sure this is done correctly. Okay, so that being said, thank you both, Mike and Jackie, for presenting. And
Thank you all. We appreciate your time. I hope everybody enjoys their Thanksgiving. Thank you all.
you too. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, at a previous meeting, Trustee Pierce had mentioned about doing a small business assistance relief package. I know that Michael, Jim, Joy, myself, and a few others at other meetings even have talked about ways we can do it. We check with other communities on what they're doing. So at this particular time, I don't know if Michael wants to give us an update, Jim, whoever's got some information on that and going forward, and I can explain a couple things that we did financially with our finance department.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. We have a PowerPoint. I wanted to walk you through, pursuant to the village board's direction over the past month. Staff has been working on a number of options. So I wanted to walk you through a number of options and really get some feedback, what direction staff should take as it relates to small businesses assistance. As you as well know, it's self-evident that obviously because of the COVID and because of the governor's new directives and some of the serious public health challenges that we have, we are in a major economic challenge for small businesses. They're really on the bubble. We have major concerns of the viability, long-term viability of some of these businesses because of COVID. So I wanted to walk you through a couple of things. And first, before I talk about the small grant assistance program or proposal, I wanted to just very briefly walk you through some of the things that staff has already done. One of the things that we've done is we've incorporated a new interactive map that went live. It's actually on our website in our Facebook page. It actually highlights all our small business shops and our restaurants with all their Facebook and their webpage information, along with videos. I think it's a very interesting interactive map. We promoted that as part of our new All Together initiative. So that's actually, if you haven't had a chance to look at it, please do. So we're very happy with that interactive map. Another thing that we worked with specifically with our marketing consultant, specifically, we came up with a new tagline to help small businesses through COVID. All Together. There is a new logo that is actually also incorporated on Village's website. really encouraging the community to recognize the critical importance of our small business community, and really during these critically important holiday days this month, the next 30 days because of the holidays, to really support our small businesses, specifically our restaurants and small retail. So the All Together initiative that we worked on really promotes that. And concurrent with that initiative, because of the critical importance of for restaurants, obviously their dining opportunities have been strictly restrained because of the governor's new directive, because of the COVID crisis. It's more important that the pickup zones, dining out, pickup areas for their pickup areas. We have dedicated parking spaces, and we incorporate a new design of a sign. We've actually installed these signs along Main Street, along and Lake Street, to set aside these parking spaces for these restaurants. That's critical that these spaces be maintained. So that is another aspect that we have actually incorporated. So I wanted to very briefly walk you through what in the future, what can the village do? And I wanted to just lay out a couple of options. The first thing is based on what other municipalities throughout the Chicago area are doing, is a business assistant grant. I've highlighted several communities. Our nearest communities, Lindenhurst, also Mundelein, some of the southwestern suburbs, communities like Lamont, Plainfield, Shorewood, have been very active in providing assistance to their small retail and restaurants. I don't want to spend a lot of time. I think all the information is in your packet, but I'll give you an example. Lindenhurst has provided assistance, 50% reimbursement up to $5,000 for their restaurants to provide a winter outdoor dining grants. Eligible expenses include new barriers, outdoor cover items, outdoor heating, outdoor furniture. It's really based on what Mundelein has done over the past month. It's really geared towards, again, assisting the restaurants. Communities like Lamont and Plainfield have been a little more aggressive, and they've also assisted not only the restaurants, but also retail. Again, they have maximum grants of $5,000. And so it's a little more broad. Plainfield has incorporated some limitations of at least a maximum of 25 employees. So what staff has tried to attempt is to look at what other communities are doing throughout the Chicago area and come up with an outline of some potential assistance programs for small businesses. So very briefly, what our program is proposed, and I'm looking for your feedback, if this is something the board would support, is a $5,000 maximum grant program for retail and small restaurants with a maximum, again, of 25 employees. The actual per annual gross rate, the revenue would be capped at $500,000, which we've identified as for small businesses. This would again be open for small businesses, including retail and restaurants. There would be, any business that has received grants, now that does not include PPP, would qualify for this grant program. Perhaps the most important question is, where would this revenue come for this $5,000 per grant? We have identified, based on our current existing facade program and business incentive grant program, there's approximately $82,000 remaining after deducting our obligations for the existing facades, which have already started or are near completion. We're also potentially proposing an additional addition to that, to a $150,000 fund to help our small businesses. This is something that's been reviewed by our Economic Development Task Force, which is made up of numerous business people throughout the community. They've reviewed this program, and it's also given us a fairly good input on that. So that is very briefly, I've walked you through a potential of a small business grant program. Another aspect that we also considered, we want to put some options on the table here, is a potential of waiving village fees, specifically as it relates to water fees. So there would be potentially an opportunity to waive water fees for small retail businesses and restaurants. That would also provide some additional assistance. Mr. Keim has looked at the potential fiscal impact on that. And based on our analysis, we believe that would have a very minimal impact on our fiscal ability, our fiscal health in the village's water fund. So that's another option that we're putting on the table. Another option that the Economic Development Task Force actually discussed, I thought was a creative option. I think the actual details have not been really clarified, but we did get some feedback about a shop and dine coupon program where somehow the village would provide some type of coupon or some type of reimbursement for to visitors or community members who shop in a downtown or who dine in various restaurants. We would provide a coupon. Again, we're looking for some type of feedback from the village board if this would be any support for that. This is just a very general, rough concept, but some other communities are doing that. That's another aspect. Another aspect that we've also focused on is branding and marketing. In December, you will probably be seeing, once the task force clarifies some issues, a new branding initiative for our downtown Antioch. We hope to create a new brand for downtown Antioch. We believe that could also assist from a marketing perspective, our small businesses over the next 2 or 3 months. We're also in the process of creating a dedicated website for our downtown with this new brand. So again, that's another approach we're taking, better marketing to help our small businesses. And then again, the All Together Antioch tagline, you're seeing that concurrent with the interactive map. These are some of the new initiatives. We see this marketing initiative All Together as a way to really help us, again, emphasize the critical importance of having the community support our small businesses. So I've covered a lot of material in my report. There's a lot to digest, but I'm really looking for the board's input of what we can and should do to assist the small businesses in our community over the next 3 or 4 months until spring or early summer, and when we get through this medical crisis as it relates to COVID-19. So with that, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you. I'll start with trustee Pierce.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. First question is for Joy. Have we received COVID funds from the state yet?
No, not yet.
Okay, can you double check on that? Because Joyce Mason was telling people that we weren't spending the funds that she gave us. So if we've got COVID funds coming to us from the state and we can use them to help our businesses, I'd really like to do that. To add on to these funds, because we need, they're going to need as much help as possible. I like a lot of things in here. I like the small business grant program. I think that's a good start for the small businesses. And I don't care if they've gotten PPP grants or state grants or whatever grants. I think there should be no requirement on what grants they've gotten. Anything they can do to be successful, we should be helping them with the small business grant. Waiving village fees for water, that's fine. I know I hope we're continuing to waive the water increase for the local residents, or if we haven't, we need to review that also. The shop and dine coupon, I think that's a great thing that would help all of our restaurants, no matter which one they are. So that needs some building out. I like the branding and marketing idea. I'm excited to wait and see what this RFQ gets us. If we get some new and exciting marketing consultants, or the existing one stays, I don't know. I'm just looking for new and exciting marketing. So I'm looking forward to that RFQ, which hasn't come to fruition yet. I don't know about the small business tax sales rebate. That seems like a lot of work on our part, figuring out who paid what sales tax, getting it back to them. I could see if we can get extra money from the state somehow, if we can find ways to divert a little bit of more money from the business district funds to build up that $82,000. Because if I remember, the chamber has 425 members minimum, don't they, that are small businesses here? I mean, how many would be eligible for this? If we've got over 100 businesses eligible, that's $500,000. I mean, they're going to zip through whatever money you're talking at $82,000. We need to find ways to get some more money and get some marketing out there. And as far as Facebook marketing, we need other ways of marketing too, because there aren't people who are paying attention to that. We need billboards out there. We need signage up on the tollway. We need all sorts of things to help our businesses. So that's my input. Thank you.
Okay, trustee Masek.
Mike, did you say they got PPP money? They would not be eligible?
Hey, under this proposal, trustee Masek, they would be eligible. As you know, PPP is technically a loan. So based on our proposal, depending on.
Hold on, let me correct you on that. It's only a loan if it's not forgiven.
Right.
So it's a grant unless it's forgiven.
Right.
They're projecting 90% of the PPP loans are going to be forgiven.
Okay. Yeah, we had this discussion at the task force, and we, based on some of the input from the business community, if they did receive PPP funds or grants or loan, they would still technically be eligible for this small business grant.
Okay, and this is the first time I've seen this logo. So this wasn't. So when you say you've seen this logo, this is the first time I've seen it, unless I didn't pay it. I don't pay attention.
We actually we have been working with Mary Priller over the past 4 weeks, and again, this logo it really has a limited basis for to promote to get through the COVID crisis. It's kind of a follow up of our Better Together. We launched this technically last week on our Village's webpage.
I know, but did you share it in an email with the trustees, or did you just launch it? Because I don't pay attention to the Village Facebook page or web page.
There was a fairly lengthy press release on our web page.
So the answer is no. We didn't get this in an email format. It just was thrown out there.
Trustee Masek, that was my call. I did authorize getting this out there, and the time was of the essence, and businesses were screaming to have something happening. So I apologize if that didn't get notice to the board. I understand that concern, but we were kind of
stuff is done. Jim, stuff is done, without board acknowledgement. So, it's a little disappointment.
Yeah, I apologize.
For that. I understand what you're saying. It's disappointment when stuff's thrown out there and an elected member doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah, understood.
It's kind of embarrassing.
Wow,
so that's all I'm going to make a comment on.
Okay, keep going, Mike.
So, okay, I think we're looking for comments.
Okay, trustee Masek, you're still commenting?
No, I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Yost?
At first, I want to echo Trustee Pierce's comments. I think we need to take an all of the above approach. And so I appreciate all the work that staff has done and the task force and coming up with these opportunities. I think, we need obviously more details on how some of these would work, but I think an all of the above approach is appropriate and necessary to help support the business here. So I agree with that, what you've outlined here. I do want to touch a little bit on what Trustee Masek said, because I have some similar concerns. And I want to be clear that this isn't directed at staff, but I actually learned about some of these pieces from a candidate for a trustee who actually launched all of, parts of this campaign even before the village announced it on our page. And so it's, it seems to me that, there's a person involved in this process who's taken advantage of village property. And the trustees haven't even had an opportunity to review it or be aware of what's going on. And I think that's concerning. And again, this isn't a criticism of staff, but I think we need to place some more controls on this information. And if the person who shared this 3 or 4 days before the village had the opportunity to, and before any of us, as Trustee Masick said, had the opportunity to see any of it, is submitting an invoice for this information. I think that's problematic as well. And either way, I think we need to address that issue. It's village resources being used for political purposes and taking the control of the message out of our hands. And that, as a trustee, that concerns me. So I think there's a lot of good work done. I think this is really exciting. I don't want to take away from that, but I do think we have to address that issue.
Anything else, Trustee Yost?
Nothing else, Your Honor.
Okay, Trustee Dominiac?
Well, I would concur that we need to do whatever we can. I want to thank Michael for all his research and looking into some of the opportunities for us and how we can help the businesses, and also to thank the Economic Development Task Force for their input. I know at least one or two of them is on the Zoom call. And I also want to thank the small businesses who have been reaching out to the village to ask for help, but not just to ask for help, but also to give suggestions. So, some of the things that we've incorporated the first wave and now are incorporating again really came from the small businesses. So I think we need to give them that recognition. I echo the concerns about the fact that, and I'm on the liaison to planning and zoning and economic development. And again, this is not a pointing fingers at staff, because I think they've done a yeoman's job, but to find out that we had a new brand for the COVID on someone's Facebook page that is running for office, who's been paid to create that. And I didn't even know, as Michael's liaison, that was happening, is very disturbing. There was a press release that went out that we had no information about. And Jim, I applaud your defense of this, but on the same token, I agree with Trustee Masick, and we've had this discussion in the past. All you would need to do was to send it out to us in an email, the same time that you were sending out the press release. But I'm very concerned about the fact that the village board did not have insight into the new marketing campaign, that it was launched prior to the village, and also this interactive map that Mike developed, which is a really phenomenal tool, was launched by someone that's not on the board on her political page. And we kept being told, I'm working on this by Michael and you're going to see it. And we saw it there. So I agree with Trustee Yost and Trustee Masick that we need to put a little bit more guardrails around our proprietary information that comes out of the taxpayer dollars. But in summary, though, I think that all of these ideas are some that we should be pursuing. Obviously the devil's in the details on some of this. And there was a lot of discussion at the Economic Development Task Force about how to administer the grant program, because obviously, we've had situations in the past with our incentive grants and our facade programs where, we've ranked them and given criteria, and somehow have managed to not use those criteria in making decision making. So I think that's going to be important. And I know, Michael, that you're very competent and able to pull together the tools that are going to be needed to make these things happen. So good job. Thank you.
Okay, Trustee Polis? Anything?
My comments are just regarding the grants that businesses may have gotten in the past. And the only concern I would have there is if we gave any kind of local grants out to some of these businesses, and then we're turning around and they're getting money first after we've already given them money, there might be a concern from other businesses who haven't gotten anything yet. Whether they got PPE or whatever, I don't care, but if we've given people incentive grants or facade grants or things like that, and then we're going to turn around and they might be first on the list to get other money, that might be a little bit of a concern for me and for other businesses. So I don't know how we can throw that into the formula. Other than that, I think there's a lot of really good ideas out there. So we should move forward with what we can.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Johnson?
Muted.
Can you unmute yourself?
I bet.
Trustee-
Sorry. Yep, sorry. Here I am. I like how trustee Yost put it about using the all the above approach. I do think we need to do that. I love some of these ideas. I think they're really good ideas. A few concerns I have, and then one suggestion is the three of the concerns that I would have is one is if we limit and I understand we have to again make a decision on maybe an amount, but if we limit businesses that sales are under 500,000, you're going to have some of these businesses that could come at us and tell us how they're very vital to Antioch or to downtown or whatever the case may be, and even though that they're being penalized for making X amount of dollars and driving in traffic, but they're hurting as well. So I think by alienating those businesses could be a concern. The other thing too is how are these businesses going to come and show that they're less than 500? Will they have to provide business financials? That could be a concern as a business is showing the personal information and so forth. The third thing is businesses are such an integral part and it drives our economy. But again, you might have some of the taxpayers and so forth. And when I say taxpayer, the individual residents, and I know the businesses pay taxes and so forth, but individual residents, could kind of say, what about me? So again, I like all the above approach, and I like us helping the businesses. Those first two concerns are my only two things, but I think we should also, and I know Trustee Pierce and a few others mentioned about helping out the local residents or whatever. And again, the one thing I think we can do, I noticed on one of the sheets, help one of the villages only help the ones on Main Street or whatever. I think if we come up with what I'm about to suggest, which actually was suggested by Jim Donahoe, who approached me with the idea, and in my head I was tweaking it. I think if we did something where if anybody, everybody's eligible, whether you're 12, 13, 20, 40, 50, you come in, you spend money in our village of Antioch or Antioch, you save your receipts, you go down to Village Hall, you have $1,000 in receipts, you show the village, you spent the money in the village, we go ahead and give them, again, I'm just thinking out loud here, give them village bucks, give them $100 or $100 rebate. If you give $100 rebate towards the water bills, then you're going to hurt the people that maybe don't have a house necessarily or whatever. So again, maybe give $100 back for groceries or whatever. So village bucks, and they take that and they go to Piggly Wiggly, use it at Piggly Wiggly, and then Piggly Wiggly turns around, gives it to the village reimburses Piggly Wiggly for $100, and it just continues to snowball and keep spending money inside the village. And this way, there's every single person that has an opportunity to earn something, and it benefits the whole village as a whole. But again, I love helping the businesses. I just want to express some of those concerns about the financials, and I like this other idea where I think we can help everybody out. Everybody is eligible, and it benefits all.
Great, that's a good suggestion, Jerry. So, very good. I'm happy with the direction that we're going. This whole thing with the Economic Development Task Force, we've got very, very strong-minded people that are very vital to what we are doing here to support the board and some of these decisions. We had our meeting last week. I immediately went to finance and sat down with our finance director, Joy, and that's what we came up with when Michael was in on that meeting with me and Joy, and Jim was out at another meeting, and we had about $80,000 left. I asked Joy to immediately refill that fund and try to move some monies around so we can at least rebuild that fund to where it was. My other comment was at the task force meeting was the fact that we are investing in unknown businesses that never been here before with these grants, and it's based on their concepts that didn't even put a dime into the community yet and had not had one sale. We have a whole business district that's giving back what this community is supplementing our property taxes with, and that's sales tax. And we need to at least reinvest with the businesses that have been here struggling and making it happen for years. And now we have a pandemic, and some businesses have been here for 20, 30, 40 years, and they need us now. And if we're willing as a board to drive new business and have them come into the community, I think it's our obligation to try to come up with these types of funds to at least keep the ones that really got us to this point. And again, I love the idea about Antioch bucks. We did it when I was in retail. We did it back in the 80s. They were called Antioch bucks. It was done a little differently. It was through the merchants where they exchanged dollars back and forth. That is very creative. Again, maybe there's a way of turning some of the incentive money or some kind of monies into a fund that we can also use to support the local residents. And again, Michael, hopefully we can get on something like that immediately and see if we can't, especially with Christmas coming on, maybe through our marketing efforts, maybe we can get that program rolling pretty quickly. So that being said, anything else, Michael?
No, that's all I have, Your Honor.
So you got some notes and took all these things that we brought together. So, and again, thank you, board, for being involved with this. Scott, go right ahead.
I like what Jerry said about the bucks and the getting people to shop in town or dine in town and getting reimbursement somehow. I like that bucks idea. I think that's a great idea. One thing I also want to address, because I thought it was just me, so I was just keeping my mouth shut at the beginning of the meeting. But once I heard Trustee Masick speak, and then Trustee Yost, and then Trustee Dominiak, I was shocked when I opened up Facebook on Sunday night and saw what our big ad campaign was, or maybe it was Saturday. I forget which night it was, but I was shocked because all I saw in our meeting packet on Friday was we're going to be discussing the All Together Antioch program. And then all of a sudden it's out there and it's done by a candidate for office. And I was like, what's going on here? You know? And if I did that with my company, I would have been frog marched out of my company. And so I was a little bit relieved to hear Jim say, well, he had some authorization stuff going on there. But at the same time, I think they're right. We need to put some sort of controls on our marketing, our intellectual properties, and have it only used for the village and not for anything else, especially people's campaigns.
To be clear, I had no idea that it was going to land there or be announced in that fashion. That was an absolute shock to me as well.
All right. I mean,
I did not authorize that portion.
We don't have a policy on intellectual properties, so anybody can use it.
Well, we need to have a policy, and I think there could be a good debate as to whether that's legal or not.
I think the problem is not that it was used, but it was used before the village even had the opportunity to use it.
Well, the problem is you can't slap someone's hand if there's no rule to slap someone's hand with.
It was unanticipated. That's all I can tell you. It was
Yeah,
completely.
but you have to have a rule to slap someone's hand, and there was no rule to slap someone's hand with.
It wasn't in the public domain. I mean, for all intents and purposes, it was stolen.
Hey, Bob, can you chime in on this? Maybe, again, we all know what the problem is. Obviously, you can't reverse what's out there going forward. Is there something we can do to at least try to correct this?
The only guidance we have, and this is the very first I've heard of it. I don't, as many of you know, I just really never, ever look at Facebook. I don't see anything that's on there. So this is the first I've heard of any issue like this. But the only guidance we have is from the state of Illinois that says you can't use village resources to bolster a political campaign. If this is a village resource, I guess it's a problem, but I'm not sure it's a village resource to put out an ad campaign and just anticipate it. it's, it's a real gray area. We don't have a policy on it. And it doesn't, I mean, I don't know all the details about how this happened, but there are things in this that could have been done better, I think. And I think having a policy and anticipating this might have been a better idea. But, the problem with electronic policies is the ability of people to move faster than policy can be created is legendary. It's everywhere. It's not like it's we sit in the back room and try to figure out how we're going to deal with policies that might be needed in 5 years. It's this is the sort of thing that generates policy, and then you have to be reactive rather than proactive in some respects. So, is this something that should be addressed by the board? I think so.
All right, so Jim, I just say, Jim, just go to the source and just see what happened, and we all agree that this can't go forward like that. So,
All right. I'd like it on the agenda for Monday night that we have a vote to solidly lock down our intellectual property, because this is not the first time it's happened. It happened with District 117 Connections magazine that was being worked on, and that was published on a campaign webpage, which is part of our property also. So we need to have a firm policy in place and firm direction from the village board that theft of our property is not acceptable. No way, no how. And that's
Problem is we don't have copyright protection on these things. I hope you understand that. It's a very expensive proposition to get full copyright protections on these things.
Well, and it may not be a legal issue, but it certainly is an ethical issue that this is something that someone used. We're told that we're not supposed to be that the village should lead on things, that we shouldn't post on our own Facebook sites, anything about the village, that the village should take the lead on it. And then we're learning about something by someone who is being paid to develop it and then claiming it to be hers. And it's out before the village. So I agree. We need to have something that protects our intellectual property. I mean, when I worked at Baxter Abbott in marketing, I couldn't take a campaign and go out and launch it on my own. So, I think that this needs to be addressed, and I don't think it's just simply a slap on the hand.
Well, I'd be very careful, because people are putting Facebook posts out that claim people are bullying people at meetings, Mary. So I'd be very careful with your accusations. So
those are my opinions. Those are my opinions. Those are my opinions.
Opinion out there. Everybody's got an opinion. You can sit on your opinion because it does no good. Your Fraser Thomas posts, they're getting kind of ridiculous. So I'll give you my opinion on those posts. So you need to keep those opinions to yourself.
I have an opinion. I can share my opinion.
Your Honor, your
post on Facebook was merely a bully post.
Your Honor, take control.
I have a question on a different topic. At the Economic Development Task Force meeting, we talked about, is there a possibility of using the business district funds for some of these programs? And I think, Your Honor, you weren't sure if those could be used for this type of a program, that you thought it was more for infrastructure. I don't know if Joy or Jim can answer that, or Your Honor, if you know the answer to that.
Yeah, I think I asked her the question. I Bob can even maybe answer that. I pretty much thought that was supposed to be mostly for assistance as far as infrastructure or structural things. So I'm not quite sure on that. Bob, maybe you can chime in, or Joy, or if you know. Jim?
Well, it's more a matter of how you want to spend money. Generally speaking, there should be public impact from whatever expenditures there are. That's the principal guiding star. And of course, whenever you spend public money, you have the prevailing wage issue, and then you have the TIF Act. If you go back and look at that as kind of the gold standard, it says that pretty much everything underground and horizontal, the roads and the sewers and the rest of it, is appropriate for public expenditure, but the building itself and the facades and the rest of it are generally left to the public. We have modified that a little bit through a formal policy through the big grant that Michael came up with. And that's a good policy. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's an exception to the general rule.
And the plans for the business district, were not based on operational usage. So we established the business districts by ordinance. And in those approving ordinances, we did not list, nor do it's my belief, and I'll check it out, but it's my belief that it's really to be used for brick and mortar, public infrastructure, possibly private infrastructure. But when we start handing out that, I don't believe the intent of business district revenues to be distributed for operational expenses for businesses is going to be in compliance with state statute, but I'm going to have to do some research on that. But when it comes down to it, we're going to have to follow our own ordinances that created those districts. And unless we listed that as a use of funding, you may have a hard time without amending the business district. So it really comes down to some legal questions that we're going to have to do some research on, whether you can use business district funds for things other than brick and mortar type infrastructure projects.
Can we use the format?
Great.
I think that business district fund wasn't set up as a piggy bank. I think it was basically, I granted this COVID is a whole different issue and we'll try everything. And thank God we've been diligent and conservative and did all the things we did over the years to, create some decent fund balances and stuff. So we're in a position, hopefully, that we can protect these businesses and also protect the taxpayers, because obviously, again, that's how communities get in trouble is they have money in hand and they want to spend it, even though the money's there to be spent, because obviously it was a tax or through sales tax. But I think that business district fund, we got to be careful that we don't veer from it too much, because obviously we spent 2 years putting it all together and having it in operational for 1 year on the east side. You can see that the funding is pretty healthy, having over $1 million in balances right now from just basically a little bit over a year on the east side. But we also have some obligations that we're looking forward to as far as why we put the district together. And that was to put these big projects that would otherwise have to go out for possibly a referendum to the homeowners to either approve or whatever. And that's what we don't want to do. And obviously we do have some major projects that I think we want to look for. So again, we have to be very careful with that business district fund, that we do have the policy set that we go forward in the right direction.
Thank you. I raised the question because we had the discussion and someone had asked about it. So
Okay.
just wanted clarification. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. All right, Michael, we'll go forward with that, and I'll work closely with you and enjoy on the financial part of it to make sure we have the resources and hopefully come up with the best program to get to our businesses. Okay, the next on our is going to dovetail right into our business district, and that is the discussion on a resolution regarding the issuance of a bond for certain capital expenditures, including costs associated with Route 83 redevelopment project area, business district planning and construction of public works and improvements. So right here is going to talk about business district funding right here. So Jim, you want to take this forward?
Yes, Your Honor. So we are designing, currently in design phase on Grimm Road, and just for estimation purposes, let's call it $10 million. We are currently moving forward with plans for the Pittman property. We have some very, very preliminary conceptual estimates, 5 to 7 million. The source identified in my mind was always business district funds. Now that these districts are producing revenues, we have, albeit not a lot of history in the central district, but we have enough to speak to our financial advisors, which we have in Baird. It's Stephen Roberts, and we had a conversation with bond counsel, and that's Daryl. And what we've put in the packet there is a resolution, and that would be the first step on a long road to bond issuance. There's a schedule in there of things that need to happen to use these business district funds to support alternate revenue source bond issue. But the first thing that is recommended we do would be to pass a reimbursement resolution. Essentially, that resolution in the packet would allow expenditures made, such as engineering costs, such as property acquisition costs, such as other soft costs in making plans for these larger projects, to be reimbursed from bond proceeds. If we were to leverage the bond or leverage the business district revenues, it would produce bonding in the amount of, I believe it's 18.6, 18.7. It's something shy of $19,000 or $19 million to use for these projects. Now, there's been other projects discussed, the rejuvenation of the parking lots, both in the east side and in the central, off of Toft, redoing hardscapes and landscapes, redoing alleys, a lot of the things that were discussed when we were talking with Mr. Downey in the task force about things that can be done in the downtown environment to improve the hardscapes and landscapes and overall appearances, possibly facades and other things. This would give you the ability, if in the primary question, I guess I want to dance around it. The primary question is, do you want to go forward and issue these bonds? That resolution would be the first step, which would allow you some reimbursement of the initial expenditures, which looks like we're going to do. But then it's really making a commitment to funding these projects. I do not see any other than a general obligation bond, which would be a referendum. I do not see any other means to fund these projects. You only have so much in fund balance, which will not support this. A pay-as-you-go approach, is going to really delay implementation of these larger projects, such as Pittman and Grimm Road, or the redevelopment of the downtown environment. And there have been many, many other projects that have been, mentioned. Maybe a third or fourth leg to the stoplight near Menards, for the development near Lucky Bernie's. That's been mentioned. That'll come with a price tag. So there are things that we need to start thinking about on the funding side. And I guess again, the primary question is does the board want to go down this bond issuance path with business district revenues pledged?
Okay, thanks, Jim, for that presentation. I'll start with Trustee Pierce.
Thank you, Jim. I think that was kind of always the plan. We're going to put these business districts in place, and then we're going to start finding funding mechanisms to make things happen, like the Pittman property or Grimm Road or the stoplight. But I got to say, the state used lottery money to fund the school somehow. That was quite a twist on how things were used. And if we don't have our business, if we have no businesses here, there's no reason to be building Grimm Road and doing stuff downtown. So we got to kind of figure out a way to make both happen. The bonds going forward But at the same time, in this moment in time, when it's so critical for our businesses to survive, finding a way to save them too.
Okay, trustee Masek?
Yeah, I'm wondering, this is COVID time. Are we moving forward with this just a little early? That's kind of my concern. I know this isn't planning development, but the businesses have to be saved first. Things got to come around. Once they come around, then we go back to normal. Does that
I
make
will-
sense?
Yeah.
I'm gonna have Joy jump in on this one, Jim, because obviously she's got a little more handle on where the main money's been coming from. And it seems like the east side, where a lot of this money's actually been generated, hasn't really been affected by COVID that much, even in the worst of time, so.
Yeah, but I just want to make sure that if we do something that we don't look like, geez, during COVID times, we got the restaurant starving and we're spending money like sailors.
And it's a very good point. The perception of this, could be that this is not the right time, which is exactly why I wanted to bring it up right now. We've identified a schedule that would put us in position where the bond sale would be somewhere in May. So it's a long path, and there's many steps on this path. Whether or not we should proceed at this current time, that's going to be a board decision, but I wanted to lay out the option for you at this point in time, because I think it's probably the earliest time frame what we could lay out. If we were to get aggressive on these projects, I am feeling some public sentiment pressure, to move on these projects. And the way to do that would be to put the financing in place, but the financing wouldn't occur. The actual bond sale wouldn't occur until May. And we, of course, would never pledge 100%. Bond coverage would be minimum 125%. We're closer to 130% coverage based on revenues that we see today. And you wouldn't necessarily have to issue bonds. You wouldn't have to do this in one issuance. You could put these ordinances and this path forward and do multiple issuances where you're not committing. Just because you can get $19 million out of this revenue stream doesn't necessarily mean you go and do the full pull on the 19 million out of the box. Maybe you do it in steps and a couple of different issuances, which would give you hopefully some comfort that you weren't getting overextended in any way. Because I think that's what we're talking about. I think that's what Trustee Makes is talking about, is the possibility of getting overextended.
Hey, Jim, can I ask a question before you move on?
Sure.
Is there a stopping point? I know there's procedures that we have to go through to get to the point where we issue the bonds. Are there stopping points where if things weren't moving well with economic recoveries and businesses and things like that, where we could just pull the plug and say, we're not going to do this right now?
I think you have, yes, to put it in short fashion, yes. I think there are stopping points. At any point in time, I think you could pull the plug on it. But I would hate to put the time and effort. We're going to have to put a bond team together. And all of the work gets done ahead of the payday. Everybody gets paid out of bond issuance in May, and all the work gets done prior to that. So pulling the plug on it may leave some people in the lurch. So this is why we need to consider it seriously. I don't think this is something we take we don't use any half measures. This is either a go or no go on the bond issuance. It's not something you proceed with.
I was just saying if we had to, we could.
If we had to, yeah.
But
At any point in time, if because there's multiple approvals with the board, all the disclosure law, all the different ordinances, all the different hearings, all the different public notices. At any point in time, if you don't take that next step, the whole process will stop. And that is your, I guess, your trump card. You could stop the process at any point, but I don't think we I don't think we go into it thinking that we're gonna need to pull a trump card.
Correct.
And at the same time, if I can add the bond rates that we're seeing in the market right now are about as advantageous as I've ever seen. That's just a factor for you to consider, whether it makes sense or not. Still have to make that determination.
But let's go forward with the order, so we can get through this. Trustee Yost?
I understand the concerns from a timing. I have similar concerns, but I also, kind of look at this and it's a little bit of a chicken and the egg, right?
Right.
We could say, well, from a timing perspective, it's not the right time, and there's risks associated with doing this, and we have to wait to see how COVID turns out. But at the same time, making those investments might help our businesses pull out of COVID faster. It might create an opportunity within our community that draws others in to take advantage of the fact that we were better positioned than they were to create a better business environment. So when you look at that in conjunction with the bond environment that we're faced with right now, to Bob's point, I think it makes sense. I like the idea of maybe looking at doing it in steps, perhaps, maybe be a little bit more deliberate with regard to how we go about it, maybe take a more conservative approach. But I think it's something that we need to consider, because I think we could wait ourselves out of opportunity as well.
Thank you, Trustee Yost. Good point. Trustee Dominiac?
Well, Trustee Polis asked my question, so thank you for that. And I think just going along with what Trustee Yost was saying, I mean, this is kind of a risk reward situation here. And while I hear what you're saying, Jim, that we don't want to stop the process, we could if we had to. So I'm comfortable with the fact that we need to make these investments. I think everybody has said basically what I would say. So thank you for that, gentlemen.
Okay, Trustee Polis, anything else?
Nope, I'm good with it. Go ahead.
Trustee Johnson? Muted, Trustee Johnson. Your mic.
Yeah, I agree with what Trustee Yost said. I think we have to make calculated risk, so to say, but I think we should be a little bit aggressive where everybody else is kind of staying a little passive. We can kind of be ahead of the curve.
Okay, thank you. I like to concur with myself, with both Trustee Yost, the Trustee Dominiac, Johnson, and Polis, and the rest of the board. I mean, I feel for everybody's concern, but if we, hopefully we've learned enough about this. They got hopefully some vaccines coming out soon, and if we keep waiting and waiting, I mean, I think we're putting resources in place to assist these businesses. We can't give them the whole checkbook, you know what I'm saying? So we need to at least show that we're doing these improvements, and this was the tool we put in place to do that. And again, we can't stay stagnant either. We got to keep planning ahead, and hopefully that we're going to get out of this. If we're just going to sit back and be droopy and think that that's doom and gloom, it's going to be doom and gloom. And I think we need to put a positive spin on it. And I think we just need to push forward a little bit and take a little bit of a risk, and hopefully it works out. So that being said, I think we'll forward this hopefully to the board at the next meeting, and we can discuss it there. And hopefully Jim's got some more information on that for us. Okay. Moving on to the next item, if everybody's okay with this last one, we have one item left, and that's the Economic Development Task Force update. Michael?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Very briefly, in view of the late hour, we've already kind of covered some of the things that the task force is working on as it relates to the small business grants. I talked a little bit about branding, but I wanted to assure the village board that we have a subcommittee working on the future branding of downtown. The first individuals who will see that, other than the task force and that subcommittee, will be the village board members. So we're hoping that will be tendered either to the board, either in December or potentially in January. with also potentially an outline of a new downtown website. So again, we'll keep the board fully appraised as it relates to that. With regards to our new branding, we're very excited about that. And that's part of our new marketing approach for downtown. So that we're hoping to have that for the board's review in the next couple months. And downtown beautification, I just wanted to give you an update of that. We did receive 7 consultants who submitted RFQs. So staff is in the middle of reviewing those RFQs. We'll probably have some input from the task force also on our input from the beautification consultant. We hope to bring that to the board in all likelihood, probably in January. It's possible that December could be possible, but that's a pretty quick timeline. So either December or January, we'll probably come in with a recommendation for a consultant to work on our future beautification plan, as we previously discussed. As it relates to marketing RFP, those RFPs were submitted. The deadline is December 13th. Staff will have an opportunity to review the RFPs for a new marketing consultant with the input of the Economic Development Task Force. And again, we hope to bring that to the board probably in January. And finally, as you well know, we did seek the village board's input about posting the actual videos that were completed by the township for our Facebook page, social media. The Economic Development Task Force, some of the retailers who were on that task force specifically requested the opportunity to have their videos also posted on our social media Facebook page. So the input that I'm looking for this evening is, would there be support to also post retail videos along with our restaurants on our Facebook page? So I'm looking for input from that. That's the one question that the retailers did ask me. With that, I have nothing else to highlight this evening.
Okay, Trustee Pierce, why don't you answer that question as far as the retail?
I'll answer it for myself. I think it's a great idea that the retailers and restaurants, if they want to add a video into our webpage, that maybe we can creatively mix them together. One of ours, one of theirs, one of ours, one of theirs. Make it something exciting. Help them out. I'm fine with it.
I'm almost done.
Trustee Masek, I know you had some concerns about service, so we're not talking
Well, I
service.
think, I don't think people should be discriminated against on what they are. You know, someone goes, and I say it, someone goes to the doctor's office or to the bank, that they'll go out to lunch, or they'll pick up a snack, or they'll do something. So, you know, everybody wants to know who someone is, and everybody's starving for the dime today. So you shouldn't leave someone out just because they do something different.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Yost?
I would agree with Trustee Pierce. So I think if we can make it a little bit interesting, I think that's a great idea.
Okay. Trustee Dominiac?
I think it's a good idea. We talked earlier about doing whatever we can to help the businesses, and if sharing those videos helps them, I think that we should go ahead and do it.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Paulus
Yeah, I think we should go ahead.
and Trustee Johnson?
Same with me.
My question would be only if somebody wants to, because I know there's only so many videos out there, and I know that was one of the concerns, that not everybody had a video. Could we, in fact, if the companies themselves create a video, a retailer, maybe have somebody do their own, because they seem like if they're done tastefully, that we could share those particular ones? How would we react to that? Because I'm assuming we don't have 500 businesses on video, or 400 or 300. You know, we only have so many that were produced. So in fairness,
I thought that was what we were discussing.
I understand.
If we produce tasteful things, I thought that's what we said. No problem.
No, right, but we have certain ones that are already in the archives, correct? That we already have is what
That's
we
correct.
have all already available, but we have
So-
some that we don't have any of out there yet.
So we could use what's in the archives now. That
Correct,
are already in the can and start with those.
correct.
And then I'm thinking that we could encourage the businesses to reach out to the township, because I understand from talking to Tom that they still want to do more of those. And in fact, when they post those videos, it says, if you would like to be videoed, please contact us. So I've actually pointed a couple people over to them. But I think, to your point, Your Honor, if somebody wants to do, you know, a decent quality video, I think, just for example, Merle Norman did one the other day, and that was very well done. We didn't, the township didn't do it. And I'm not saying we should use that one, because I think they also did the township one, but that kind of quality, then why not put them out there?
Mhm, mhm, okay. I just know that, you know, the village should be the driver on this stuff, and they should be the ones in control of this stuff, and obviously it is for the village businesses. So I think we need to have a point person, that's Lori and Michael, to make sure that they distribute this stuff correctly. So yeah, I'm all in favor of making sure that we have the right tools for these businesses. So. All right, anything else for the good of the order here? Other than having a great Thanksgiving tomorrow, hopefully everybody eats a lot and
Your Honor,
stays
Your Honor.
healthy. Yes,
I'm sorry to drag this out. I need to take care of two pieces of business. And they both pertain to Oakwood Knolls. One thing that was mentioned earlier is cars are getting damaged on the boulders. Maybe we can have staff look at those and the placement, and maybe there's, if they get moved to scooch, maybe it helps. Maybe, you know, they can look at, I can turn my navigator around down there, but if somebody's damaging their car on our boulders and stuff, maybe we should adjust the boulders a bit to make it a little bit easier. The other thing I have to say is, during the discussion earlier, I quoted Pam Goldbogen's dad's letter that he had written, and it appears that I may have misquoted what he said about the lakefront and the animosity between the lakefront and stuff. And if that's the case, it was because I misread the letter, and I wanted to make sure that Pam and her family knew that I meant no ill will, and I apologize flat out if I was misunderstood, or if I misunderstood the letter.
okay. All right, if nothing else, I'd like to thank the board for a great meeting, and hopefully everybody stays healthy and stays away from what we don't want to get. And hopefully everybody has a good meal tomorrow and with their loved ones. That being said, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Happy Thanksgiving. I'll motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mary.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Trustee
Happy
Dominiac,
holidays to all.
Trustee Johnson, happy Thanksgiving to everybody, and I'll just need all in favor by saying aye.
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 Motion carried.